You still have it?
I still have it. And I would get in and out of that car. I felt like it was like a giraffe getting out of a cocoon. I mean, it was just so silly, but it did work. And I made it a point because I was selling cars, and I was proudly maybe sold more cars than my brother. My brother probably sold more cars than me, but I sold a lot of cars. And we knew we needed to prove it. What I think was so great about the Roadster is it did actually prove it. It proved that if you took the price out of the picture, it was an amazing car. I mean, there was not a car in the world that performed better than that Roadster. You show up in that car to the coolest party in LA, you get bumped to the front of the line, they put your car right up front. It was a stunning car. I mean, the design of it was absolutely beautiful. We're very proud of taking it very seriously, that even though the price, we could not control that, this was a great car. And so we did succeed at that. We had to sell 2,500 of them. Each one of them took hours to sell. And it wasn't just me and my brother, everyone, all hands on deck just to get them sold, so that we could earn the right to do the Model S, right? And so we did get it done, all the way out now to the last one. I think we even lost money on every car, but we proved the point. We proved the point that people want the car, that EVs are better, and that enabled us to get the financing for Model S.
One of the toughest, presumably, periods of your business career was leading into the Great Recession. You guys are basically out of money. SpaceX has had 3 failed launches, Tesla's bleeding dollars. You have, I don't know if it's $1 million or, I read one story where it was $1 million, in other words, like 375,000.
More like the 375,000. That was what I had left after I sold my company 10 years before that, but I had put money into Tesla and other companies and SpaceX and others, and I had nothing left. This is how bad 2008 was. People don't remember. I have a bank here called Colorado Capital, and I had also decided to buy a house and keep my old house, which sounded good at the time, but then 2008 happened and everything fell to pieces. And I get a call from the bank saying, hey, you are missing your mortgage payments. We're going to need to either force you to bankruptcy or pay the houses or something like that. And so I'm having those calls happening. And then, but they knew that I had some assets, including $375,000. I had an Apple stock, which I love Apple. And my brother called me and said, I just need your help, whatever you got. And what's great about America is bankruptcy is not totally the worst thing in the world. Like, if I go through bankruptcy, I'll figure it out. I feel like I'm a capable human. But if I don't help Tesla, I'll regret it forever. And I wanted to help my brother, but it's also my company. I wanted it to be successful. So I actually made that decision. I remember selling the stock, wiring it to Tesla right away, and immediately I get a call from my bank because they are watching my stock transactions, and they're freaking out. Like they're so pissed they're going to force me to bankruptcy because that was kind of their safety buffer that I was going to pay my mortgage. And I was like, sorry, that's all I got. Trust me, I will work my way through this. We are in relationship here. Let me figure it out. Don't take my houses from me. And I get a call every week. We're gonna fight you into bankruptcy. And then all of a sudden, I stop getting calls. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure they're gonna call me at some point. And then a month later, I get a call from the same guy. And he says, we just want to let you know that our bank just went bankrupt. And I was like, oh, it's that bad. Everything just fell to pieces. And I was saved because it took them about a year. They even told me this. They said another bank will buy the debt. You've got about a year. And within a year, I was able to figure things out and be able to pay back those loans. And whoa, that was hard.
What was your lowest point during that period?
I mean, it was constant fear and anxiety to lose it all. I mean, we had to close the financing with Tesla, which was super hard. I mean, General Motors went bankrupt, Chrysler went bankrupt, Ford was about to go bankrupt. Now all of a sudden the car startup's going to get funded? Like, no way. And that's our good friend Antonio Gracias actually stepped in and did a career risking decision to lead the round. And so when we pulled that round together, SpaceX got a deal from NASA right around Christmas. We actually did get the rocket into orbit. So that got that company through there. I had my restaurant was going through its own crisis because of the Great Recession.
You're getting hit from everywhere.
Getting hit from everywhere. And yeah, she's taking one day at a time. And I've gone through that many times since then, where we're 2018, where Tesla almost went bankrupt 3 or 4 times. And say one step at a time. Make one. Don't think about tomorrow. Just think about today.
Why was that 2018 period arguably harder?
I wouldn't say it's harder.
Okay.
I would say that it was the other very hard year. Both were very hard. For 2018, we had to get the Model 3 launched. We had to build thousands and thousands of cars, tens of thousands of cars, even hundreds. I can't remember the exact number. It was like a lot of cars. 5,000 a week was basically our goal, and they just started sort of stacking up. And then we had all these naysayers that were doing drone footage of the parking lots of cars. How on earth are we going to get these cars out to customers? And we had September 30th to hit, and I'd taken over logistics, where I don't normally operate in the company, but from like July to September that year, I came in and worked in the offices and would fly to distribution centers to say, like, what's going on? Why is this one not working? There was one happening in Georgia where our cars were stuck in this truck stop in Georgia, and everyone was like coming up with excuses like this, that. And I was like, no, none of these excuses make sense. I want to talk to the guy in charge of the truck, and I called him, and this is crazy. He was going through a divorce, and he was sad, and he had parked all of his trucks in this truck stop, and didn't want to work that night because he was sad. You're not just in charge of one truck; you're in charge of this fleet of semis. And we really need it. If you don't mind, I really understand the pain you're going through. I've been through divorce. Can you do this for me? And he said, okay. And at midnight, that entire fleet of trucks started moving again. And like it was like that level of humanity that we went all the way down to the people driving.
keep on
And then
scrolling.
later on in the month, I was in New York, and we had I think we had
Do
like 10,000
something
cars we
else.
delivered in the New York area. You just physically couldn't do it. And so we had this idea to reach out to our fan base
Feeling.
and ask them if they would deliver the cars for us. And we just had thousands of people come out of the woodwork. We just had to trust them because if they wanted to, it's their car. They've got the paperwork, it's theirs. And it was so beautiful to ask for help, to get help in spades, and
Devil go
do something that was
Scorpion.
completely nonsensical. It was incredible.
How satisfying was that to go through it and then
I will say the
come out
most
on the other end?
satisfying moment of that whole time was, I think if I recall correctly, the last day of September was a Sunday. So it was a lot of cars, you can't deliver cars on Sunday in many states. And it was Saturday night, so it really mattered what we did on Saturday night. And I was up till like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I was just like pushing every single
Was
person in
super
the one
zoomed in.
direct emails, direct texts, direct calls to every single person I could to get the number
Mobile
above. I think it was like we need to be above 80,000, and we got to 81,000. I still remember that. It was such a beautiful feeling. I was like, wow. I actually didn't think we were going to get this done. I actually did not think this would happen. I
we go.
had, in my own mind, had shorted myself. Like, there's no way.
And same with everybody, or do you think you were the exception?
I think even my brother was like, yeah, there's no way. There's just no way. And but if you go into it with there's no way, and you're like, well, let go. Like, okay, what do we got to lose? Let's go for it. And again, it was like I couldn't go to sleep for hours. So I just remember just being in the house and just kind of feeling the silence of the beautiful Colorado night. Just we did it. It was amazing.
We were talking a little earlier about SpaceX, and I'm curious
What's up?
the first conversation
No, it's
you
not- I
remember
don't really
having
like it.
where it was about, hey,
I mean, you
we
can
might build a
read it
rocket
if you
company
want.
here.
You can
I was in a
download
conference
it
room. My
for
brother asked me to
free
join,
online if you wanna
and it was
read
more like a non-profit
Go-
venture.
Go on
I don't
one of
think
those websites where you can download it.
we used the words non-profit because we didn't really know what that meant at the time.
No, I prefer the Elon Musk one. I actually prefer Elon Musk's book. Steve Jobs is a bit of a dick. Like he has too many like tantrums in the book where he starts like yelling at people. He's kind of it's written in the book as he's kind of manipulative. I don't really like him so far.
But it was a philanthropic venture for sure to take a
I'm
product
not really
plant,
Apple
like
fan.
a little ceramic jar with
I like the
leaves on
Elon
it,
Musk one.
and
is
get
good,
it to
though.
Mars, just to prove that it can be done. Not like the build a business or anything like that. And then that turned into, well, maybe the best way to do this is as a for-profit. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm going to invest because well, love to support my brother, but also kind of cool to go watch rockets launch and blow up and stuff. And so that all kind of worked out pretty well.
You were talking earlier about the price structure, and then the alternative, SpaceX ended up coming around and offering with Cost Plus.
Well,
I mean, the alternative to Cost Plus. That, yeah.
So the military-industrial complex, the reason why it is so, why it has such a bad reputation is the government wants control, and the for-profit companies want cash flow. So they're like, okay, let's all come up with an idea. Well, why don't we just do cost plus? Whatever it costs you, we will give you 10% above that as your cash flow.
Who's double
So
B?
the natural outcome of that is for Boeing and Lockheed to say, turns out it costs us a lot, like a lot. We need 50,000 people for this launch.
And it takes forever.
And it takes forever, because the longer it takes, the more money they make.
trying
And
to
so
make a
that, of course,
dating
wasn't the
app too.
intention,
Let me-
but that's just how human nature works. And so
Let it.
SpaceX came along and said, look, we're doing the math on this. This thing's not going to cost that much. It's not going to cost $1 billion. It'll cost $50 million. And the government would say, but we'll pay you $1 billion. We just want you to do it our way. No, but that's the wrong way. You should do it this way. That's $50 million. We're very happy with that price. The government was like, no, but we don't want that. And we actually couldn't believe it. We're like, but you must want it for a lower price. Actually, they
Jobs,
didn't
yeah,
care that
Steve
much about
Jobs.
price. Especially the generals. The generals, and the military, they really didn't care about price because they really needed it. I had one conversation with the general was very enlightening. He was like, I need you to understand, I am a general. I am in charge of success in war. I need it to be the way I need it to be. You need to understand where I'm coming from. I need to control this. And it was enlightening because it's not untrue that if you're a general, you don't want to lose control. But it had gotten so out of hand. In fact, it was Senator McCain who fought for us in government to allow the government to do a different business model. So we have a lot of respect for him. We spent good time with him. But without someone like him, like a maverick inside government, to say, hey, there's a different way here, we would still be in this world where you cough in the direction of space, and it's $10 billion, as opposed to a SpaceX, we're able to do a
You
launch
know
now.
you can build apps with
and
AI
full custom-
nowadays.
it's all-
right? I think the problem
we charge you a price, and you pay the price, and we deliver, just like it is for Amazon. And that's how we ended up. I think we now run
problem
80%
I
of the.
found
of the-
with what I'm doing is that I'm trying to do it alone, and that's the
The
problem.
launch business in the country.
I want to take you to September 28th, 2008. Tell about Disneyland that morning and
Oh, yeah.
everything you remember from the fourth launch that followed.
Well, so remember we had 3 failed launches. They're all in Kwajalein. So Kwajalein is in the mid-Pacific. It's a military base, and that's the only place where we were allowed to launch rockets because we couldn't hurt people. And they were right because we blew up the first 3. So at this point we
I'm trying
had
to build a game too, but
no capital left. 2008 was a disaster for all around. It wasn't just SpaceX.
What's it called?
And there wasn't also much to do, so we didn't fly to Kwaj. We were in LA.
What's
The control room is actually it is in LA. So control room is this sort of mobile home in a parking lot. It's like literally as cheap as you can imagine. So rather than stay in the control room, my brother and I went to Disneyland with our kids, and we had the best day because you're standing in line. We didn't have any VIP passes, and you're just kind of like you're just letting the day pass. Like it's a way to use up the day, and we had a great time. And we checked our watches. You know, the lunch is at 4. I remember it being at 4 o'clock, and it was at 2:30. So we should probably get back. It wasn't like let's get back with much time to spare. So,
you know, I'm kind of jealous. You know, I kind of wish. I kind of wish university life was throughout life, but you know, I think I was listening to what's it called, Diary of CEO. Diary of CEO again, man. To be honest, this podcast is actually quite good. It almost makes you feel like you're part of the conversation-ish. Not really, but.
Your guidance or advice. So even when I did
down and she planned it. No, she'd been through a bunch of stuff with a bunch of guys who had taken away her freedom, and so her subconscious was testing whether I was one of those guys that was also going to try and restrict her or control her. But throughout her whole relationship, I was aware of this. So when those moments where she said, you know what, I think
I mean, Steve Jobs is that. It seems like an asshole when you end up becoming rich. So I think it's luck involved too.
I want to fly back to Bali. I said, babe, at any time when you feel like you want to go back to Bali, you go and I'll help you. I'll help you go back to
I asked ChatGPT what I should do. And it says I should make a dating app for Asian men. I'm sure like it already exists. I think the problem, I mean, I tried making one. Oh my god, man, this crashed. Let me remove the terminals.
To Bali. You don't have to be in London. You go wherever makes you happy. I'd say it all the time. I'd say, you go wherever makes you happy. And you know what? I would mean it. Because why would I want to be with someone that wasn't happy? And this is ultimately what meant that she felt safe, secure, free, and then it flipped. But that would never have happened if I was like my friend, who literally feels like he's up against the clock to find a woman, and he needs to find one ASAP. Because he's actually 30, he's nearly 40 now, and he's single. He's like, Steve, you don't understand. I don't have the time. So he's trying to rush people down the aisle.
Yeah. So it's always when you said that in his circumstance, but you always wonder why would, and some people truly don't want to have kids, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But I have found, because I've seen it too, when somebody says it, why are you saying it? And do you genuinely mean it? Or are you saying it to see the other person's reaction? Are you saying it because you want to feel better? Because I know some people who maybe did want or do want to have kids and they can't, or they can't find a good partner. And so a way that they make peace with it too is they say that. And everybody makes peace with things their own way. Or some have had past relationships where the other people, you know, their potential partners were turned off by, especially, there's like this thing, and I don't know if it exists now, but where some guys may be turned off because they think women want a guy who just wants to have kids. So I don't want to put off that vibe. So I'm going to say this to you so you don't think that I'm that way. So that's why I always wonder when people say it, what are they really saying?
So in her case, her sisters have never been able to leave their hometown, her 6 sisters, because all of them had kids super young. And he actually told me this a couple of months earlier, that she's a little bit unsure about the kids thing because she thinks it'll hurt her freedom. So 6 months into their relationship, when she comes out with a statement like that, honestly, what I said to him, I was like, bro, like, you're 6 months in.
Say
just
nothing.
let it ride. Just bloody hell, just carry on, like, whatever you were doing in that moment, just carry on doing it. And say, that's interesting, keep it moving. Because, you know, but going back to the point, because there's this internal insecurity in him, as much as you could coach someone like that, or they could read the books, etc., they're going to be tested in 1,000 ways.
So he's fear-based. So his decisions are being made because he's afraid he won't find someone. So he's dealing with something. It's not confidence he's dealing with. He's insecure, but his decision is, I need to find somebody now because I'm afraid I won't find somebody, or I'm afraid I won't get married, or I'm afraid I won't have kids. So everything is fear-based with him. It's like when you make a decision, you know, I can't quit my job because I'm afraid I won't find another job. I can't leave this bad relationship because I'm afraid I won't find somebody else. Those are fear-based decisions. So everything he's doing is pushed and promoted by fear. So him dating, trying to find someone, it's not because does he want to find somebody? Yes. But the bigger drive is, I'm afraid I'm not going to find somebody, so I'm trying so hard.
I'm listening to this podcast. This guy is talking about his friend who's 40 and is rushing to find a wife. See, I think the older you get, the more problem it is.
So all his decisions are fear-based. So that's why his response were fear-based. Being fear-based is not a great place to be. We all visit it, and it's okay to have fear. Fear is an emotion, but when it becomes your identity and it sticks around
I'd also want to move too. I don't think Manchester is the party of the world.
lot, that means every decision you're made is throttled by fear. And so his dating is throttled by the fear that I won't find somebody fast enough.
People can tell, can't they?
You feel it. You feel it. You feel that energy. right? And does it repel people? Yeah. So he had this very emotional reaction. And what did she do? She's like, I don't want any part of it. She disappeared because his fear, which he couldn't control, and that was more self-regulation on his part, not confidence. Self-regulation. Self-regulation is I control my emotions. So he felt something. He felt panic. And he couldn't manage that. He couldn't, like, his governor, we all have a governor who manages our emotions. His governor was out to lunch.
Yeah.
And so he completely released. So self-regulation is your ability to regulate your emotions.
but
So even though you're
yours is
panicking,
more
you're afraid,
like
you're angry, you're sad,
31, right?
there
You're
has
still
to be a
quite young.
governor that says, I know you're there, keep it quiet.
There's a girl called Georgia. She came in the live a lot. She doesn't come as often now, but she found someone. She had 2 kids.
That's how you regulate your emotions. That's
I don't know who
self-regulation. So
she's with,
because he's
though.
so highly fear-based, he's very poor at the moment at self-regulating his emotions.
Can someone learn to be a better self-regulator of their emotions so that they don't ruin their life by reacting to things all the time?
I did. I was very hot-headed growing up. I was just like my father. I'm Greek. I'm New York. I mean, I just had nothing going for me. I had to learn, and I learned in the NYPD. I was very young, and I was very fortunate to be around very premier
It's
people.
funny. This girl's American. She talks like she kind of talks like all those American cartoon movies, like Kim Possible. Like I don't think anyone in Britain talks like this. I think it's actually quite interesting.
We were talking about your hiring process before, how it's slow
Like the body language. It's literally like those American cartoons.
and drawn out. That hiring process is very slow and drawn out. They pluck you because the idea is if we put you in here, you better fit well because just one person's gonna muck up the whole thing. We want efficiency. And so
I think girls in Britain don't really talk like this.
so with that, I was around very highly regulated
Maybe
people,
the behavior might be the same though, because they are basically women. But
highly intelligent
No.
people. And so because I was around very highly regulated people and instructors who kept me in check, I clocked it in. So that's how I was able to manage myself. So who's around you? If everybody around you is a loose screw,
Do you still have the amygdala like explosion? Do you still have the mental surge of emotion,
like
but you
AI.
just on the outside sort of have learned to keep it in?
externally, I can do it very
you
well.
worked in the
Sometimes at
Secret
home with my
Service.
husband, he's also Homeland Security Special Agent, U.S. Secret Service. Sometimes it's nice to put it down because it's hard to be on all the time. It's hard to self-regulate all the time. And so there's moments where he'll be like, somebody's a little emotional right now. And so I'll check myself. But there are those safe people that once in a while you
see, I think this is really interesting. I've never met anyone that really talks like this.
I think it's important if
Not
to
that I like the American accent. It's definitely less familiar, but I think it's kind of interesting.
have. But even with him, you don't want to do that to people because then you make people your doormat.
Someone came up to me actually the other day and talked about a previous conversation, which is somewhat linked to what we're talking about now. They said, hi, Stevie, you had that incredible woman on your podcast, and she talked about how you shouldn't bring your authentic self to work. And she asked me about that. And that's kind of what you're describing there, which is you're going to be a different person at home.
Don't bring your authentic self to work. I don't want your authentic self to work. I want your professional self. I want your respectful self. I want your empathetic self. I want your competent self. You can bring your authentic self to Thanksgiving meal with your family if you'd like to. Does that make sense? U.S. Secret Service is like, come in, everybody be your authentic selves. You don't get high performers, you get sloppiness. Everybody's doing their own thing. That's not a team. If you're team-oriented, you leave your authentic self here and you bring your genuine self, who genuinely cares about the mission, who genuinely cares to do a good job, who genuinely knows that it's not about you, it's about the collective team. That's who you bring. Your authentic self is about who? Me, 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 me. I'm all about me. In teams, nobody cares about, I don't mean it in a mean way, they don't care about you personally. Who are you, what are you bringing? Are you bringing value? Are you bringing solutions? Are you getting things done? My authentic self. Could you imagine if I brought my authentic New York self to every interrogation I did? I would interview people who committed crimes against children. I had one case, 3-year-old little girl. She says about the person who was babysitting her, which was a 16-year-old young man. He touched me down there. 3-year-old little girl. So they call me in to do this interview on this young man. This little girl saying he touched her down there. They're 3. They're not really able to communicate. Can you talk to him? So I'm sitting talking to him this interview, and I'm trying to find out what happened. Well, as I'm talking to him, he starts to reveal more and more. He did touch her down there, and he did other things to the point where he confessed he had full-on sex with this little girl between the ages of 3 to 4 of her age. He's 16. Could you imagine if I brought my authentic self into that room? What would my authentic self say? What are you thinking? How could you? It's a 3-year-old. No, I brought my professional self. Okay, tell me what happened. Tell me more. Non-judgment, poker face. You know why? Because what I think, my authentic self, is irrelevant. What mattered? Getting information, getting a confession so I can find out what happened so that investigators could figure out what to do so this little girl wouldn't be victimized again. That's what I mean by your authentic self. Don't come in and be phony. Nobody wants a phony. But authentic self has become me, 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 me. Everybody check me out. It's me, me, me. I was irrelevant, personally.
Do you want to watch this woman? Like, I think she's not actually a bad looking woman either, but like, the way she
What
talks-
I was contributing, what was my goal, my task. That's what I mean by authentic self. So when you show up to work, wherever you work, what are you bringing to bring value to the whole team? Because your authentic self could be, I'm bringing my problems, I'm bringing my opinions, I'm bringing my judgments. Honestly, nobody cares.
I have lots of different leaders across my different companies, and when I look at the best leaders, one of the things they have in common is you do feel like they are being honest with you. Are they bringing their full authentic self and all their baggage to work? No, but you feel like you're dealing with the honest version of them. And I think some of the worst leaders, the ones that really, really struggle, you can see that the team that they're leading just feel like maybe they're manipulating them a little bit, or they're not being straight with them, or there's something going on, they're acting, you can kind of feel it. So I'm wondering how this kind of sits with everything you've just said there, because you're going into these interrogations and you're winning them over to some degree because
I'm building trust.
You're building trust, but you're not acting. That's a different thing.
I'm not being disingenuous.
How do you square all of that? You're like, are you acting? You're not acting?
I'm listening. Because I'm not there for me, and I'm not there to pass judgment. The quickest way to shut people down, even in business, you want to know what's going on around you all the time. If people are too afraid to say things, or don't tell Steven, well, if you don't know how he's going to react, or he's going to get mad, he's this. That's a problem. The problem is they're going to be too afraid to tell you things. You want people to come to you and to give you the bad news, to tell you when things aren't going right, because you want to collect intelligence. You're collecting intelligence, because when you have the right intelligence, then you can make the right decisions. But you must need to know what's going on around you. So when you pass judgment and you're telling everybody your opinion and you're bringing your authentic self, people filter information because they're bringing versions of themselves that they think you want to hear. We don't want that. I was very neutral. I'm a neutral slate. Even to this day, I try to be neutral in that I allow people to come to me, and people are very open and they share, and it works well for me because I get a good read on people and situations so I can make good decisions. But I don't do a lot of the talking. A good interviewer doesn't say anything. A good interviewer says less. Don't make it about you. Don't try to guess where people's headspace is. Ask them. You seem like you're... Something I said before is upsetting to you. Could you tell me a little bit about that? Explain to me what it is that you're worried about right now. Describe to me what you're concerned at. We used to call it TED. Tell me, explain, describe. It's just a great way to get people talking. Just get them talking. But going back to what you're saying, it's just everything is very about me, me, me. We become so identity-based that we're not connected to the community around us and how we impact others. Everything is what's happening to me. What's in it for me? Me, me, me. It's like, do you know that you impact other people? You touch other people. You affect other people's lives.
Yeah,
You make other people's day better or worse. You make the work environment easier or more taxing. You do that. But everything has become
Secret Service.
myself. And we've lost that balance of
Special agent.
the world does to me, but I also do to the world.
To be effective when you're dealing with these
special
monstrous
agent in the
people that you
Secret
dealt with, whether
Service.
it's terrorists or people that hurt children, whoever else it might be, did you have to kind of step outside of, like, do you have to detach
Older than
at some
that,
deeper
older.
level, and do you have to see everybody as just a human being? Because I'm wondering how you navigate these spaces when these people have done horrific things. Did you teach yourself to just be more empathetic, dare I say?
You could be empathetic. So all different crimes have different types of characteristics. So somebody who's a terrorist, let's say, that's more of an ideology. And they were typically raised from being very young to feel a certain way. So I understood coming into a room that I'm dealing with someone who's been groomed from a very young age to see the world a certain way. So that's why I did not bother wasting my time trying to change that person's viewpoint.
But what about that kid that hurt that little girl?
So with him, that specific one, I spent a lot of time speaking to him, and I did bring empathy. So empathy does not mean I agree with you, I'm trying to understand you. And what turned out with him is he had been sexually abused himself when he was young. And so all that stuff came out. And it did not excuse his behavior or what he did, but it was genuine. I was genuinely curious. I was genuinely asking him. And at the same time, I needed to find out the truth. Look, there were sometimes I would have somebody across from me and I'm thinking, they did it, and then...
I do think she has a level of, I don't know, courage, or boldness to her. Like, she's very loud in the interview, like, very, like, out there. I don't know, because she's American.
Afterward, I'm like, they didn't do it. There's times where you clear people, and that's really important. So that's why when you,
Obviously, I don't
at least
know
when you
this
talk to
person.
people, and even to this day, we're all biased, but I try not to come in and project that. I really try to give people a fair chance to show me what's happening instead of coming in with prejudgments. And so you're better at reading their behavior too when you're talking to people. So with him, he revealed a whole bunch. What had happened to him, it was sad, it was empathetic. It did not clear him from what he did. He eventually, actually, with the confession I got, he was eventually tried as an adult. And, that was very detrimental, obviously, to his life, right? It impacted his life. But I could have genuine empathy in that moment. Empathy is like, I'm just trying to understand where you are and how you feel. That's not sympathy.
Who's better at spotting lies, women or men?
There's no research that shows one is better than the other.
Because women seem to have a sixth sense, and people joke about it in like relationship context. But I genuinely feel like women have a heightened sensitivity. And actually, when you look at some of the studies, for example, women can smell, I think it's testosterone, but men can't smell certain hormones on women. So like from a physiological standpoint, women do seem to be more sensitive to, especially to like to men. There was that study they did where they got t-shirts off men after they'd been for a run, and the women went down and smelt them, and then I think they had to guess which one was the most attractive, and they all pointed at the one that had the highest testosterone in it. So there's things that are going on that we can't see and feel. So I just wondered if your
Selling testosterone. I think you can also raise your testosterone from going to the gym.
experience, men or women were.
In my experience, no. And I will say, this is just a lot of men were very good
How
at
does a
assessing.
man
One of the
raise
reasons,
testosterone?
look, the vast majority of polygraph examiners were male. There were some women, and they were very good too. The vast were male. Men are good at being more rational. It's actually, they were trying to figure out if there's a difference.
Too. I can't remember. I saw a Facebook video a long time ago of like a woman smelling multiple men's like t-shirts, and she picked the one that she smelled the. I can't relate to this, because as a guy, I guess we don't really, because women have so much perfumes and like shampoos and like smell in their clothing.
In the brain between men's
know.
brains and women's brains.
But anyway, I think she picked the guy that she thought smelled the cleanest or whatever. I don't know what she picked.
And there's not much. The one thing that they saw is that women have more discernment. So a female brain tends to activate a little bit more, and they tend to think about something more than the male brain. A male brain
So
may be a bit more
training.
impulsive,
Squats.
right? More action-based, and the female brain may be a bit more, let me talk to you, let me try to understand. And actually, if you look at the data for female cops versus male cops, female cops have less complaints against them,
Deadlifts,
made
bench
against them,
press.
and they tend to think because they're better communicators. They have less complaints. Because when you're a cop, you're gonna get a complaint. There's no way.
No, but I think what they're trying to say, I think with the study, what they're trying to say is like, what was the study with smelling men's shirts after a jog? Is it legit? Do women pick the man who has the best smelling shirt to them? No, but I think the point of the study is that the man who smells the best naturally with his natural body odor, and we're not talking about like perfume, we're talking about his natural body odor. Let me look at the study. I mean, the point is that the one that smells the best. So in 1995, a Swiss biology was conducted where men wore the same t-shirt for 2 consecutive nights without using deodorants or scented products. Women were asked to smell these t-shirts and rate their attractiveness. Indicated that women preferred the scent whose immune system genes, specifically major histocompatibility, whatever, MHC, were the most dissimilar to their own. So it says in that study from 1995, a long time ago. I'm like 29, so that's like 30 years ago, right? Is that not a recent study? Does this matter? So women like men whose genes are very different. What is MHC? Well, it says in the study the women preferred men who have the genes that are most dissimilar to their own. From this is believed to be a evolution. I mean, I think humans don't deeply understand genes and stuff. Tend to prefer the scent whose genes are different from their own. MHC genes, point to enhance genetic diversity. I don't know, man.
You're gonna get them you're gonna just get them. But women tend to have less, female officers tend to have less complaints, and they think that they're just better at dialoguing and de-escalating.
On this point about confidence, then, you said it didn't sound like my friend had a confidence issue. Do you think confidence is the thing that the people who do feel like they're not respected in the world need to be aiming at? And in your experience, what can one do to build their confidence?
Let me say this first. I've been around very steady people, confident people, I suppose. I've never seen anyone or heard anybody talk about it. Ever. I've never heard anybody in the circle of where I was, whether it's former SEALs, U.S. Secret Service, I've never heard anyone talk about it. And I think one of the secrets is they don't talk about it. They don't think.
I think human beings don't deeply understand. Human beings barely understand the mind, so I think they're just guessing, right? They're scientists, they're guessing. So I think this study is very confusing. It says if a woman takes a birth control pill, she prefers a man who has a similar MHC gene to their own, which fucking makes no sense, right? But it says if she doesn't take the pill, she prefers the opposite. So that's weird. But I don't think a man's scent is the primary thing that a woman picks in, I don't know, like mating.
Think about it. They don't give it that much life. I just are. So I think that's one secret where people they think about it so much, and I think it goes back to what we're saying initially, like, stop overanalyzing, just be you. Just do. But now if you're looking at confident people with things that I notice traits amongst confident people or steady people, they have a good circle around them, meaning they're very aware and meticulous of who's around them and who they associate with. Because if you're around insecure people, it bleeds on you. Like, you're gonna absorb what other people are. And if you're the most confident person,
I think if you're around confident people, I'm not physically around confident people, but I would love to get around Gary Vee. I feel like it would be useful. Like, I feel like if you're around insecure people, it makes you more insecure, and I think that's correct. I mean, she's talking about this.
Person in the room, it's probably not a good thing. Stop overanalyzing. Just
On this point about confidence, then you said it didn't sound like my friend had a confidence issue. Do you think confidence is the thing that the people who do feel like they're not respected in the world need to be aiming at? And in your experience, what can one do to build their confidence?
let me say this first. I've been around very steady people, confident people, I suppose. I've never seen anyone or heard anybody talk about it. Ever. I've never heard anybody in the circle of where I was, whether it's former SEALs, U.S. Secret Service, I've never heard anyone talk about it. And I think one of the secrets is they don't talk about it. They don't think about it. They don't give it that much life. I just
I
am.
wonder if I'm around successful people, it'll rub off on me too, because I've not really physically met. Actually, no. Wow. Yeah.
I just are. So I think that's one secret where people they think about it so much, and I think it goes back to what we were saying initially, like stop overanalyzing. Just be you. Just do. But now if you're looking at confident people with things that I notice traits amongst confident people or steady people, they have a good circle around them, meaning they're very aware and meticulous of who's around them and who they associate with. Because if you're around insecure people, it bleeds on you. Like you're gonna absorb what other people are. And if you're the most confident person in the room, it's probably not a good thing. It's not a good thing. You want.
See, I think if I'm the smartest person in the room, which isn't all the time, I prefer not to be because like I learn more. I feel like it's not good for me either.
Want to be around people you learn from. It can't just be you're at the top and everybody's looking to you. Your bathtub's gonna crack, number one. The other thing I've learned about confidence, research shows people in law enforcement are perceived to be highly confident. And one of the reasons they believe it is because they're decision makers. You make decisions on the spot, everyday life and death decisions, and there's nobody to turn around to be like, hey, can I ask you your opinion on this? What do you think I should do with this guy wielding this knife? Should I shoot? Should I not? Should I pull out the pepper spray? I mean, what would you do in this moment? You'd be dead. So when you're used to making decisions, whether right or wrong, but when you're used to making those decisions and believing in yourself and trusting in yourself that you're making the best decision you can with the information you have at that moment, that builds confidence. Be a decision maker. I think those are the two most important things, having awareness. And honestly, just show up. Just show up. Don't worry about being confident. Worry about simple things. Show up on time.
Well, have you ever heard of the saying, like, it's best that you're not the smartest person in the room, right? Like, what is it like? The quote is, when you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I was reading a study about confidence in the victim mindset. It was a study done by YouGov in 2025 in the United States. And it said women rated themselves much higher on trustworthiness, honesty, and empathy, but men
there's a
rated
lot of
themselves
people
higher on
smarter than
self-awareness,
me.
sense of humor,
I think I am.
and confidence. And the gap between self-reported confidence between men and women were quite significant.
She said, if you're the most confident person in a room, it's a problem. It's pretty much the same thing, just with a different trait, right? We're talking about confidence, and I think I can see why it's a problem. Although I've never really seen that as a problem. I guess it could be a problem, yeah. Because then other people are probably looking to you, I don't know.
It's about 50% of men consider themselves confident.
Or maybe the problem is that you're not growing, like...
Or it's only about 35% of women that consider themselves confident.
I'll tell you this, I've never heard anybody like from the field of work I came from say I feel like I'm an imposter. You know that whole imposter syndrome? I've never had that. Again, I didn't hear it till after I left the service. Like, it's wild because all these things, I had no awareness of them because they were never discussed in the circle that we were in. So I also think sometimes when we sit and discuss these things to such extent that they actually start to plant seeds of doubt. I'm not saying we shouldn't study and have self-awareness, but I think when we over-evaluate to such a degree, we never did that. And you know, how do you build confidence I think about training. Training, there was nobody cheering you on. There was nobody like, hey, Paul Purvis, good job, girl.
Like, if I'm teaching people maths or whatever, like, it's not, I don't know, it depends what you're teaching, right? I don't have a good answer. I think, like, if you're 70 years old, like Ray Dalio, the guy, you know who Ray Dalio is, right? Ray Dalio is the Bridgewater billionaire guy. If you're about to die and you're giving off all your knowledge to the world before you die, I think that probably is fulfilling. But I think if I'm just teaching people maths, it's not really that interesting.
Good job. They were trying to get me sent home. You had to fight. You had to claw your way. You had to claw your way to get that
If
job.
you're like 74 and you're passing off all your knowledge because you know that your life's gonna pass. That's a little bit different.
And then prove that you should be there. They did everything they could to wean you out, to kick you out. And so I think when you're determined, like, you stick. You just stick it out. And there's days where I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through the day. Or even runs. We would do runs, and one of the things they would do just to mess with you, they take you on a run for miles and miles, and you never knew when it
Listen to this woman. I wouldn't say she's the most intelligent person.
was gonna end. That's the worst. At least if you know, hey, we're gonna run from here to here, it's gonna be 2 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever.
She's very vocal and probably confident. Like, Very vocal.
Tell me what I'm looking at, but they wouldn't tell you. So you'd start running, and then you'd hit a point and you'd think, at least I would, I think, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? And you know what I would do? I'd go and I'd be like, just make it to that tree, which is 5 feet ahead of me. I made it to the tree. Make it to that mailbox. I made it to the mailbox. Just make it to the next tree. And that's how you do it. What's right in front of me? But if you look at that whole picture of how am I gonna be all of this, it's so overwhelming and it's just so hard. It's gonna kill your confidence. Whether it's like, I wanna do this, what's the first thing I need to do? And then the second thing, I would think, and I'm asking you, when you build your businesses, right, or your company, did you just put one foot in front of the other and just try to do it? Or did you stop and say, you know what, Steven, let's have a conversation. I need to be confident before I do this. I need to build my confidence. Did you sit and do that? And once you checked off that confidence bit, then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, one of the most incredible things is I actually didn't know what the word entrepreneur was. I had no idea what it was. So I had this idea and I started trying to figure out how to make the idea happen, which looked like 3 months on Google, scrolling down, searching the web developer, clicking onto people's links, and then emailing them saying, hey, can you build websites? So it was this long, drawn-out process of stumbling forward. And had I known, I think a lot of entrepreneurs and founders say this, had I known what it would have taken, had I known how difficult it was, had I not been so ignorant and naive, maybe I would have been demotivated or demoralized to do it. But I was 18, left university, had an idea, didn't know what the word entrepreneur was, didn't really even know how you established a company, and tried to use the internet to make that idea happen. In like 3 to 4 months, trying to figure out how you name a company, just by like Googling stuff. So very much one foot in front of the other.
Wait, what did you just say? I was ignorant and naive.
Yeah, it was useful. It was phenomenally useful. Because I think if I was informed, it would have been like standing at the foot of Mount Everest. But I couldn't see the mountain in front of me, so it felt much more easy to climb. And this is in part why people get, I spoke to Nir Eyal, who's an author of a book called Undistractable. And he said a phrase to me, which I've always remembered. He said, procrastination is the avoidance of psychological discomfort. So when you have that big essay to do, what you end up doing is taking the path of least resistance, which might be, I'll just clean the house. And the house gets really tidy. Because psychologically, that essay feels like Mount Everest. You don't know where to start, you're not well researched on it, so you clean the house instead. And so procrastination is the avoidance of psychological discomfort. And so had I known how big that mountain was when I was 18, I probably wouldn't have done it because the psychological discomfort associated with the knowledge would have been so overwhelming, I would have just cleaned my house. And so sometimes, yeah, it does help.
It goes back to a lot of the stuff that we're saying, that sometimes overanalyzing and trying to make sense of things does you a disservice. Where sometimes if you just let things be and you just move forward to try to execute, the goal is to execute and do. Because if you sit and try to analyze everything, how should this be done or that be done? Or if you look at the bigger picture of what it's going to be like, it can kill you. It can kill your confidence. Training, I had no idea what training was going to be like. Absolutely none. I went in there completely blind, completely clueless. I actually thought it was going to be like college. Haha. I learned my lesson the hard way. But this, I think we need to be a bit more present and focused and just start executing and making progress. Progress, no matter how small, is progress, as long as you're moving in that direction. But thinking about something, ruminating over something, playing that CD over and over again, procrastinating, just start, just go.
I spoke to Sir David Brailsford, who's the guy that turned the British cycling team around, and he told me that when he went in there and those cyclists were like down and out and depressed and winning nothing, one of the first things he did was ban them from thinking about the podium. And so I came up with this phrase called pedals over podium, based on everything he said to me, which is he got his riders to think about the pedals in front of him, just the rotation of the pedals, and not whether they were cycling fast enough to win the gold or needed to speed up. And he said to me when he did that, it was almost like the riders would get to the end of the track and they would get off the bike and they could not recall the cycle, because they were so present. They'd almost been in like this hypnotic state, but they ended up producing their best times. Because what they've done is they removed the amygdala, all the emotion, the fear, which burns a lot of energy as a cyclist, I imagine, if you're thinking too much. And that produced their best times. They went on to become the most successful cycling team of all time, I believe, and won 5 out of the 6 Tour de France's. And that whole idea of like, yeah, just be present, just focus on the next, as you say, step along the way. I think it's difficult for people because sometimes that first step is so small. So small that it's sometimes a little bit embarrassing. The first step to change your life, the first step to confront an issue in your life is sometimes so small that it feels like that can't possibly be the right step to take.
Because it's hard. Because it's uncomfortable.
What's that like? They call it exposure therapy. It was Jordan Peterson that said to me, he was like dealing with a guy who wouldn't leave his bedroom. And instead of getting him to like go outside and stuff, he just got him to move the Hoover 10 centimeters closer today, and that was today done. And then the next day he got him to like turn the Hoover on, but then turn it off. That was that day done. And Jordan said to me, he said the problem with people with change is the first step is
are you talking about his answer?
So embarrassingly in shame.
It can kill you. It can kill your confidence. Training, I had no progress, no matter how small, is progress, as long as you're moving in that direction. But thinking about something, ruminating over something, playing that CD over and over again, procrastinating, just start, just go.
I spoke to Sir David Brailsford, who's the guy that turned the British cycling team around, and he told me that when he went in there and those cyclists were like down and out and depressed and winning nothing, one of the first things he did was ban them from thinking about the podium. And so I came up with this phrase called pedals over podium, based on everything he said to me, which is he got his riders to think about the pedals in front of him, just the rotation of the pedals, and not whether they were cycling fast enough to win the gold or needed to speed up. And he said to me when he did that, it was almost like the riders would get to the end of the track and they would get off the bike and they could not recall the cycle, because they were so present. They'd almost been in like this hypnotic state, but they ended up producing their best times. Because what they've done is they removed the amygdala, all the emotion, the fear, which burned a lot of energy as a cyclist, I imagine, if you're thinking too much. And that produced their best times. They went on to become the most successful cycling team of all time, I believe, and won 5 out of the 6 Tour de France's. And that whole idea of like, yeah, just be present, just focus on the next, as you say, step along the way. I think it's difficult for people because sometimes that first step is so small. So small that it's sometimes a little bit embarrassing. The first step to change your life, the first step to confront an issue in your life is sometimes so small that it feels like that can't possibly be the right step to take.
Because it's hard. Because it's uncomfortable.
what's that like? They call it exposure therapy. It was Jordan Peterson that said to me, he was like dealing with a guy who wouldn't leave his bedroom. And instead of getting him to like go outside and stuff, he just got him to move the Hoover 10 centimeters closer today. And that was today done. And then the next day he got him to like turn the Hoover on, but then turn it off. That was that day done. And Jordan said to me, he said, the problem with people with change is the first step is often so embarrassingly and shamefully small that people don't want to do it. That's like embarrassing to do something so small.
Because it's a myth. We've been fed a myth that to make big change in your life, you have to do big decisions. You have to make big movement. And the big change you create in life, it's through the small movement. You just reminded me of a story of my buddy Don Saladino. He's like he does training for all. You ever watched a lot of those Marvel movies, the DC movies with all those characters? He trains a lot of them to get them physically fit for the movies. And he was telling me he had a story of I think he was telling me he had a client and who he was just trying to get him to work out. And the client was overweight and having all these issues. And what the client did, what they did is the client just tried to create progress. So the first day what he did was he took his sneakers and he just put them in front of his bed. And that was it. And then the next day, he took his shoes and put them outside the door of his bedroom. And then the day after that, he took the shoes and put them in the kitchen. And then the next day, he took the shoes and just put them on. And then the day after that, he took the shoes, he walked outside and put them on outside. Then the day after that, he took the shoes and just went to the corner and then came back. And then he went from being severely obese and having being very unhealthy to running marathons. And that's how he did it.
You've seen some of the most consequential people ever make decisions, these presidents. Maybe you can't answer this question, I don't know if you can, but who were the best decision makers and why that you observed?
I'm going to say this, to be the president of the United States, it's no small thing. So for you to get to that place, you are exceptional. I say this in a neutral way. People get very personal or biased, and I don't, just because I served under various presidencies, didn't matter what the party was. And I learned so much from all of them. But as far as making decisions, there are a couple of things. One, they had a really good circle around them, inner circle. Like everybody didn't have access to the president. There were layers around the president, so everybody didn't have access to them. That was really important. But the circle around them was a circle that was there to support them. Everybody around them was steady. I never saw anybody go cry at the White House. I never saw anybody lose their mind. I never saw anybody get emotionally dysregulated. I never saw this. And that was important because that kept them steady. The other thing was they were very good at delegating. So they didn't need to know everything, but they would find people who knew more than they did to give them advisement to help make decisions. And they would just make decisions. The other thing I saw and I witnessed, they worked very hard. I would see presidents sit up. I mean, I think it's okay to say this. I really don't talk about the people I protected out of respect. You know, there's a Greek saying, everybody loves the everybody loves the treason. Nobody loves a traitor. And so I'm just always careful not to say, but I would see presidents, like I remember President Bill Clinton, he'd be up till very late hours of the night, studying, reading, preparing, just reading. President Barack Obama, I mean, I'd work midnight shifts sometimes, and he was up, studying, sitting at his desk, reading, preparing. They would study. They would spend time studying. So all those things collectively help you feel like I'm as informed as I can be by studying myself, by surrounding myself with people who are informing me, who are also steady, and then I make the best decisions I can with the information I have in front of me now. One of the things we do, and we all do this, we do a disservice to us when things don't go or work out the way we thought they would. We beat up on ourselves. I should have known this. I should have this. I should have that. And anytime I start to do that, or I have somebody, and I always say, I'm like, my husband used to say this too, he's like, you made the best decision you could with what you knew in that moment. Don't go back and make yourself feel like shit because you feel you should have chose differently.
I've heard Obama say that as well.
Just like I said it?
Pretty much close. I heard him talk about this whole idea of making decisions at 51% certainty. When he spoke at this conference I was speaking at in Sao Paulo a couple of years ago, and he's talking about the big decisions in his career, like going in and getting Osama bin Laden. He didn't have 100% certainty. And he said sometimes in life you have to make a decision with the information you have and be at peace with the fact that you made the best available decision with the information you had and move on.
Confident people are okay with not knowing all the information.
Yeah.
They're okay. I don't need to know. It doesn't have to be 100% right because, and here's the other thing, because we're so scared of making the wrong decision, and unless you're the president of the United States or you're in law enforcement and you may shoot the wrong human being, which I get, but overall, most decisions, not life or death. Make a decision and then feel okay with it being wrong. If you're so insecure that you're terrified you're going to make the wrong decision, why? Because you're going to look dumb, you're going to feel dumb. Confidence, you don't care how you look or how you eat. You're not and you're not quantifying, he's going to think I'm dumb, she's going to think I look stupid, they're going to think this. And even for yourself. Like, you don't tally that. You're okay with making the wrong decision. It's like, I'm going to make my choice. I hope it's the right one. I did the best I could, but I'm comfortable with that. But if you're so worried about it's the wrong decision, then don't make one. And that in and of itself, that confident people don't do that. So the other thing I would see presidents do, they had time to themselves. Meaning, like, you would see them, they would have time where they would be alone and they would think. They weren't always exposed or surrounded by people. George W. Bush, he would go to Waco to the ranch. That was his roots. That was his place to, like, I need to kind of find my roots. President Barack Obama, I spent every holiday in Hawaii. He went home. George Bush Sr., he would split his time between Kennebunkport and Texas, Houston. So that was another thing. They'd all go home. They'd all go home.
I hear from a lot of very successful people that I interview that they all have some kind of meditation practice. And even when I looked at the life of someone like Steve Jobs and how he was able to continually see around corners and remove the keyboard and remove the stylus and then remove the iPhone jack and remove Java from our phones and do all of these things that at the time were like crazy talk, that someone who was motivated by money today would not have done, but someone that could see the future tomorrow could have done. And you come to learn that he was basically like a yogic, like he was a meditator. And what you described there made me think of that, which is, okay, all these successful people seem to be have some kind of practice where they get out of the trenches and like into their intuition or into the clouds alone. So they have space to stand back from the painting so they can see the full picture.
Do you know what they would all also do? I can't speak for all of them, but a lot of them worked out. Like their workout was built into their schedule. President George Bush Jr., he would bike. He used to actually be a runner. He was a very fast runner because they would ask for agents to run with him. And when you would run, you have to run with your gear on. President Clinton was a runner. Then Bush started biking, so you had to be a good biker.
Where can they run?
Well, President Bush would run the trails when we'd go to Texas or Waco. You're not going to run the streets of Washington, D.C. So the White House has its own internal gym. But they did run. They were very athletic. President Barack Obama, every morning, gym. So the part of integrating the body into the mind is key. I saw them all do it. And I think that plays a role. It can't just be, we separate the mind and body. When you physically I've just seen them all do it. And I learned it also as an agent. Like you had to work out and you had to use your body because also when you use your body and you're moving it and you're working it out, you're taking care of it, you feel good. You feel like you're doing something powerful and positive for yourself. And that in and of itself builds confidence and strength.
Just give me a minute of your time and I'll tell you about a device that my team's been using that they won't seem to shut up about. It's called the Notes Pro and it's by our sponsor, Claude. This tiny card clips onto the back of your phone and captures everything. But why it's so clever is that it picks up multiple voices at the same time. And when someone says something important, you just push this tiny little button here, and that moment gets highlighted in your notes and captured. It records the conversations that it hears, takes those conversations, creates a transcript, and it uses AI to synthesize all of that information into whatever template suits you. You get a summary, action points, highlights, and even a mind map sent straight to the Claude app. So I highly recommend you check out Claude's products using the link in the description below. Don't tell anybody this, but if you use code DOAC22, you'll get 22% off on some of Claude's products. I was trying to understand what it feels like to have a true lack of confidence. Like, how does it feel inside your body? And the research I did showed there's really 4 areas that you feel it. The first area is in your body physically, like the tightness in your body, which could be clenched jaw. It could be like that fidgeting you see, heart racing, all the like fight or flight responses. The second way you feel it is in the mind, self-doubt, asking yourself always, am I good enough? Kind of double guessing yourself, running through worst case scenarios, ruminating on your past mistakes. The third way is in your emotions, which is this feeling, this insecurity that you might be exposed at some point, avoiding speaking out too much or holding yourself back. And the last way is in behavior, which is speaking softly, rushing your words, avoiding eye contact, and apologizing too much.
I feel that's such a waste of time. Like to sit and analyze yourself. Now, if you're not a good speaker, I look at it as, I want to work on my speech. It's paralinguistics, it's called, right? I want to try for the best tone I can so that I can speak with authority. Research shows that it's not what you say. People sometimes sit and memorize like what they're going to say, the words they're going to use, when in fact the research shows how you say it impacts people more than what you say.
So the way that you speak is clearly resonant with people. Are you aware of what it is about the way you speak that is making my viewers show up every time you come here in the tens of millions to hear you speak?
When I speak, I own my voice. So there's paralinguistics there. And I learned this from doing the news, because if I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about, then it does not matter what I say. It's what I sound like. So if, even using the right part of my voice, my deeper tone, my authentic tone, it's very different. Hi, I'm Evie. How are we doing? Okay. One of the things I really make sure in front of my daughter, not to go in a really high-pitched voice, because I don't want her growing up talking like this. I want her to grow up having a stronger, deeper tone voice, because the research shows when you own your voice, people respect you and they see you as an authority. And so I just don't want to inadvertently give her that high-pitched voice, which doesn't mean it's her natural voice. It's the voice that I've helped cultivate and groom for her to have. So let's just put that right there. So those are little things that I also have awareness of. I don't want to tell her, hey, speak this way. I'm going to show her how to speak, and she's gonna mimic that. So when you look at how you present yourself to others, so as far as like when I come here and I look at it this way. This interview is not about me. You've invited me here, what, 3rd time? Thank you. I'm super humbled. But this isn't about me. It is about them, the audience, right? I don't matter. I'm irrelevant. You're irrelevant. We're 2 people who are trying to share information that maybe, hopefully, make the world a better, more wise, more just place. Maybe it helps make people's lives a little bit better. That's what matters. They matter. We don't. And so when you bring that in and you put all your energy on the person you are speaking to because they want to hear it, and if you put that there, then they feel it.
As you said all of that, I was analyzing the way that you were speaking. And you do a bunch of really interesting things. One of them is that you take silences that most people would not take. Okay, don't be offended. I'm going to try and...
I'm not offended.
Okay, I'm going to try and show what I mean. Are you there for you? Or are you there for them? Most people wouldn't have taken that silence. There's a certain selfish... Because silence is taking something from someone in an interesting way. It's like you've taken some time from someone, and people, as it says in these studies that are low confidence, they rush because they know that...
I don't want to waste your time. Yeah. I'm not that important, so let me hurry through this.
Yeah.
So I don't, because you're more important than I am. 100% right. So I will give kudos to this. I watch presidents speak. Barack Obama, again, this is something I shared publicly, and I think it's okay. He was brilliant at this. He would watch his speeches. He would speak, and he would take his time. He would do emergency, how they would interrupt TV shows or something, emergency, message or breaking news from the White House, whatever. I never saw him rush through anything. I never saw him, say himself or think, I better hurry up through this. I'm disrupting Grey's Anatomy. People want to get back to the show. No, I'm the president of the United States. I have something relevant to say, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to own my time and my voice. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to get to the point. I'm not going to belabor the point. That's different. But I'm get to the point and I'm going to pause. I'm going to own my time. So when you speak, again, it's how you say it, not what you say. You also want to give people time to absorb what you're saying, to feel what you're saying. When you slow down, also as a presenter, I am less likely to make mistakes. I'm less likely to say the wrong thing live on camera when I do the news. I'm less likely to do these things, and I'm more likely to be able to think, process, and share. And you're right. How many times do people do presentations? And when I do communication for companies, I always tell them, when you're doing your presentations, please don't do this. All right, guys, just one other thing. Let me put this in here. I don't want to waste anybody's more time or take up any more time. Just really quickly. What did I just do? I just told you what I'm about to tell you really isn't that important. So don't even listen. Why do we do that? I'm here, I'm speaking. What I have to say, if I'm saying something of value, if I know I'm saying something of value because I'm trying to share and make the whole system and process better, then pause. I'm gonna pause, I'm gonna speak, I'm gonna share. But if I'm talking for myself, because I'm insecure, I want people to see me, everybody needs to know you're sitting at that table, right? Make yourself known, make sure they can hear you, make sure they see you at that meeting. You just made that about you. You shouldn't be at that table. That's the difference. Command your voice. Also, the science and research shows, because I know you like science and research, the more we speak, meaning if we talk a lot and we use a lot of words and we don't get to the point, we are seen as less trustworthy. And people value, people will assess how competent and confident you are in the way you speak. Get to the point, say it with less words, and be impactful. Command what you say. So I think what we're trying to say is, I command what I say. I'm not as worried in my head, am I wrong, am I right? Am I gonna say the wrong thing from time to time? Sure. Who isn't? But I'm owning my voice. And I think people are so afraid to own their voice. Own your voice. And if you're wrong, if your intention is right and you've prepared and you're doing your best and you're being genuine, not authentic, you're being genuine and you genuinely care about the people you're speaking to, the audience, then it's all okay.
You use your hands a lot as well, which I think is a trait of someone who feels like they deserve your attention and space and respect, because it takes up room to, and as you were doing that, you were using a good, 50 centimeters either side of you to make the point, but it's also just being more engaging to watch because you went, and most people would, a lot of people, it's kind of like,
So there's a couple of things. So it's really good that you brought that up. One, I'm Greek, so that plays a role. So I try not to be, so they're called illustrators when people use their hands. But yes, there is a strategy to it. One, I learned it from doing television. When I first began doing the news, which I knew nothing about. Again, I went from a job where you were supposed to be not in front of the camera, actually out of the camera, because the camera was supposed to catch the president, never you, to being in front of the camera. And the producer I worked with the very first day said, let me give you a secret. When you're on camera, just so you know, the camera sucks like 25% of your energy away. It takes immediately 25% of your energy out. So when the person is watching, you look flatter. You ever watch Zooms? You ever do a Zoom and it looks like everybody's bored out of their mind and you're thinking, what's going on? It's not them, it's the camera. It takes energy. So if you're trying to engage people, one of the things you can do, first of all, when you speak, people hear 49% of what you say. So when you're talking, if you're able to keep their attention, they're hearing half of what you say. And that's if they're connected to you. So think about that. Now I'm trying to speak, and when you speak, you're also telling a story. So I can sit like this, which, side note, when you sit on your hands, it's considered, some people say it's considered a sign of deceit. I'm hiding my hands, I'm a liar. So when people don't see hands, it's a sign of untrustworthiness, like you can't trust them. When you see hands, open hands, I'm no threat. It's kind of like a psychological thing from prehistoric times. I see no weapons in your hand, I can trust you. So that's something I learned as a technique as well in the polygraph room. Always have your hands out, always be open. I'm here for you. And so I've learned to roll that into how I present, because I learned that it's really important to use your hands, and you are storytelling, and you are commanding your voice. So all those things combined, you're trying to keep also people's attention. So I also look at it, I'm trying to keep you engaged in the conversations. So I can't be lazy. And I have to work hard to keep you engaged. You're also, people kind of like, they ping pong. Even if you ever go to a conference and you're like, I'm really gonna pay attention, I'm gonna really focus, and 5-10 minutes you're in there and you lose people. It's not their fault. What am I gonna eat later? Where am I gonna go for lunch? Did I send that email? Oh, I have to pick up my dry cleaning later. People ping pong. So it's especially today where you're competing with all this noise, and there's so much noise out there. You really are trying hard to keep people engaged. So you don't have to be long-winded. Speak, engage, show them that you're there, own your space, and command your words.
One of the things I learned from watching Mr. Beast make content, but also from doing this podcast and sitting with guests that get really high retention, because the audience don't know this, but when every guest comes on the show, we get a graph back from YouTube and the other places that the podcast appears that shows how many minutes people listened for. And sometimes there's big swings. Between the lowest performing guest and the highest performing guest on YouTube, there's a 100% gain in retention. So thinking back over the last month, the lowest performing guest on the Diary of a CEO in terms of how long people listened for is, let's say, just an arbitrary number, people listened for 1 hour. The highest performing, they listened for 2 hours. And that's the range that we see. And when I look at why that is, it's often because, it's always because of the way that they speak. You're one of the people that has extremely high retention because of the way that you speak. And Morgan Housel's another one. And I was watching Morgan Housel, the way he delivers his message. And he basically always starts it with a curiosity gap or a promise. And Mr. Beast does the same. Mr. Beast's videos don't start with, hey, hi, I'm Mr. Beast, welcome back to my channel. He immediately shouts a promise in your face, which is I've put 1,000 people in that circle, the last one to lead wins $5 million. And immediately there's this curiosity gap, I want to see the answer. And I just noticed that in great speakers, even on stage when I go to conferences, is they leave me hanging on something that they haven't yet given me.
Somebody once, when I began doing keynotes or speaking, there was this other speaker, and he said to me, he's like, let me give you some advice, kid. And I was like, sure, I'll take it. I didn't mind. And he hadn't heard me speak yet. He was just trying to impart wisdom. He said, just because you're an expert doesn't mean you're interesting. And it always stuck with me. Because there's people, Stephen, that are probably smarter than I am.
Beast does the same. Mr. Beast's videos don't start with, hey, hi, I'm Mr. Beast, welcome back to my channel. He immediately shouts a promise in your face, which is like, I've put 1,000 people in that circle, the last one to leave wins $5 million. And immediately there's this curiosity gap, like, I want to see the answer. And I just noticed that in great speakers, even on stage when I go to conferences, is they leave me hanging on something that they haven't yet given me.
Somebody once, when I began doing keynotes or speaking, there was this other speaker, and he said to me, he's like, let me give you some advice, kid. And I was like, sure, I'll take it. I didn't mind. And he hadn't heard me speak yet. He was just trying to impart wisdom. He said, just because you're an expert doesn't mean you're interesting. And it always stuck with me. Because there's people, Stephen, that are probably smarter than I am, have more years or time of experience in the U.S. Secret Service than I do. There's always somebody that's better, smarter, faster, whatever. But a big part of what plays a role is how you present and how are you sharing that information and are you doing an effective job, right? It's not about, let me tell you how smart I think I am. It's about being able to relay that information in a way that people can understand and that it's digestible. It's how they process information. Do you know I even learned to do that in the interview room when I would Mirandize people? I was trying to assess where they were linguistically. And so I could speak to them in a way that resonated with them. So one of the things I would do is I had Miranda. I never read Miranda verbally. The Miranda rights in the United States before you interview anybody. And I would do this whether they were an applicant, a suspect, a victim, because you never knew how things were going to go. I would Mirandize everybody. You know, you have the right to remain silent, all that. So I had a piece of paper and I would hand it to them and I would say, please read each sentence out loud. So the first sentence would be, and I would have them hold it. They would read out loud, I have the right to remain silent. And I would ask them, do you understand that? I wouldn't read it. They would say it. I would listen to them and I wanted to hear their speech, how they, like how it resonated, their language skills, and they would sign it. Then we'd finish it, and then I would ask them questions that I already knew the answer to. What's your name? What's your date of birth? Where are you from? I had all of this. I did not need it. But it was a way for me to assess their speech. And then based on that, I would meet them where they were. I'm not going to speak the way I normally speak. I'm going to adapt my speech, there's adaptability, in a way that's going to resonate with you the most. So using big, hefty words, speaking super fast, especially I'm from New York, like I said, I go to the South, they speak slower. I would have to slow down so I could meet them where they were, so I could speak to them in a way that resonated with them. It's the listener that matters. I am irrelevant. We don't matter. They matter. Where is that person? I'm going to meet you there. Also, even when you write, one of the things I learned in journalism school, New York Times writes at an 8th grade level. To keep it simple, so that people can actually finish the article or even a book, my book. Do you know how hard it was to write the book? Not for the content, but to write it in a way that was easy for people to read, not for people to read a chapter and be like, I need a nap. Because it's too cognitive heavy. You want to do things that people can absorb and they don't have to use all their brain power. If it's too hard, if we speak too smart or too complicated, people get tired. So the delivery mechanism in which you give information really matters. You're talking so that they can understand, so that it's not hard for them to follow you, so that they can follow you easily, they can stay connected with you, and they're not needing a nap after you're done. You speak for them, not for you.
A lot of people, especially I think podcasters, sometimes like to use bigger words because it makes you sound smarter.
The research shows that actually people see you as less competent. You use simpler words, and you get to the point, and you use less words in the vocabulary. It actually shows that you're deemed as more competent, more confident, and more trustworthy.
I realized this a couple of years ago when I was running my New York office for my old company, and there was this young lady in the team who I'll call Sarah. I'll call her Sarah. And Sarah in meetings would, when we were doing like creative brainstorms for clients, we had Uber was a client. I remember being sat in the Uber brainstorm. She would kind of think out loud. And so she'd say, what about if we did, I don't know, maybe we could do something like, maybe we could do like a pop-up and then she was thinking out loud. And then there was this other guy who I can name called Catty, he's a friend of mine still to this day. And he would never speak, but the minute he started speaking, it was like the room fell silent. Because he spoke so infrequently, we all knew that he was taking the time to think about what he was saying, and what he was saying was about to be really, really valuable. And I would witness with Sarah, people literally cut her off. They would, even before she had said a word, like the first 2 words out of her mouth, they would immediately assume that it was not worth paying attention to. Because she had developed what I would later call a bad contribution score, which is kind of like your credit score, but you hurt it when you contribute beyond value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but she's not, she's so engrossed, and it's not to throw, judgment on her, but that's what happens when you're so engrossed in what you're thinking that you lose sight of, there's 10 other people in this room. And this is when, if you're going to open your mouth, use your pauses, use your silences, so that you can make sure your message is impactful and you're not running through, you're not vomiting everything out, which also makes you look nervous and lacking confidence. But if you're going to speak, then command what you say. Speak with conviction and don't waste people's time.
You can think of people in your life, right? If you think about all the people you work with, there's ones that overtalk and there's ones that definitely undertalk and then there's ones that like hit the balance just right. And can you like tell me about those people and if that's even true, what I just said?
It is true. I think it depends who it is. If it's someone I'm working with, I'm always kind of like, can we just, in my head, I'm like, land the plane. Like, I have to have like 10 more conversations like these. It's not to be mean, but as you go higher up, or as you're doing more, you have less empathy, ironically. It's not because you become meaner, it's just I don't have the ability. And can I ask you a question, actually?
Sure.
Do you tend to draw people that want to work with you who think they see the persona Steven here, and you're guiding people, you're helping people, you're in some way mentoring people. Do you find that people want to come to work for you because they think you will do that for them? Do you tend to draw those personalities?
Of course.
How do you know you have that?
This is a good question. Usually in the interview process, their orientation towards why they're here will be too much about Steve, too much about me, and it'll be highlighted when they meet my executives, my team, my chief of staff, my CEOs, whatever. They'll always come to me and say, I think this one's a little bit too interested in you and not the role. And so when I get to meet this person, I'll ask them a very simple question, which is explain to me exactly why this job appealed to you. And they should be, and in that moment, all their answers should be about the work at hand. Not, I read your book and I thought, loved your podcast. You know, it should never be that, because as you know, from working with very interesting people, that stuff will fade. And when we go into the trenches, it won't matter whether you liked my book. Like, we're here to do work, and you have to love the work. It has to be the work has to be the thing you're thinking about in the shower, not my podcast. And if that's the case, then you'll be fine here.
When I did the hiring for the U.S. Secret Service, I did the polygraphs. And I know you can't polygraph people, but we would polygraph people. So I was like the last line of defense. They go through the whole hiring process, right? Interviews, panel interviews, exams. There's tests you would have to take. Anyway, so you pass all this stuff, right? And then you get to me. And so I was kind of the last line of defense. And one of the things I would ask them during the interview, I would ask them, kind of like what you said, why do you want to be a U.S. Secret Service special agent? And I typically get two types of answers. Oh, I think it'd be a really interesting challenge. I want to see if I can do it. It'd be really, I want to see what, if I'm able to do it. And then the other answer I would get typically would be, I want to serve my country. I want to help protect people. I want to do something bigger than me. Do you know who made it through the hiring process? These guys. These guys who are I want to learn, I want to challenge, I want to see I can do it, because they were so self-focused. They not only were they not making it through the hiring process, they want to make it through training. Because these guys were focused on the bigger thing, their role. And then these guys were focused on themselves, what they could get out of it. So when people are interviewing with you, what can they get out of it? I get to be around Steven. Me. There it is.
Yeah. This is also just a really good piece of advice for what to aim at in your life, which is not to aim at the labels, the flashy things,
Oh
the
my
ephemeral,
God,
the
man,
things that
that's
will
so
fade
funny.
after a week, a month. Actually, this goes back to what problem my friend has with, he goes for people that look really good on the outside. That's part of the reason he's still single. He really cares about what it looks like. And I remember one day him saying to me, I've just started dating this girl, Steven, but I'm not sure, because, I just think if I walked into a restaurant with her on my arm, then I just don't know how it would look. And I remember thinking to him, bro, you're so, if that's what you care about, you're going to struggle. And people care too much about how it looks.
How they look?
How the job makes them look. How the situation makes them look.
Yes. Although I will say to my husband sometimes, I'm like, you're lucky you're hot when we fight. You're lucky you're a good-looking hot man, because I don't know if we would have survived. So there's moments, Steven. Truth be told, I'm looking at him like, you're lucky you're a good-looking man. Otherwise, I don't know. So there's moments where that'll save the relationship. But I digress. I forgot what you asked me because I took you in a different direction, because I was really just curious to see, because I would see it with high presidents, and I would see it with certain people, and I experience it myself too. Sometimes you get this,
Yeah.
and I would think you would get it a lot, and that's a really tough thing, I would think.
I would say, though, some people that have been extremely successful in my company, they were also big followers of the show. I'm thinking of you, Christiana. Christiana, who is our Chief Revenue Officer, she told me she's listened to every episode ever. Actually, in her application, she used, in the subject line, chapter 19 of my book, and then in the email, there were several things that I'd written in my books. She's an unbelievable performer, because actually her career and her life and her passion is also the work. So it can be both, but it can't be just, as you said, it can't just be, I just want to see what the challenge is like. You know what I mean? It can't just be the surface level. Is there anything else that is really pertinent on the point of, that guy backstage that said to you, that gave you that advice, which was kind of a little bit patronizing? It sounded like that. You said it wasn't, but it kind of...
I didn't take it like that, but I also don't get easily offended. To me, I looked at it like you have to really say something pretty offensive to me to be offended. So I think my offensive level is probably, my tolerance is higher than others.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, because in the job that I came from, you just couldn't get impacted with people as easy. You have to think of it this way. It would be something stupid, Steven. Here in New York once, President Barack Obama, we went out to dinner, and I had to tell somebody standing by the restaurant, ma'am, sir, could you please just cross the street and stand there, because we have to clear the area? And people lose their minds. You're violating my rights. Phones come out. They're yelling at you in your face. Now, the New York me or the heavy me wants to just punch them in the throat, go across the street. I don't have time for this. She can't do that. So when you have a job where people dislike you because you're law enforcement, and they're in your face, and when you're telling them to do something, you have something called reactance. Nobody likes to be told anything. Nobody likes to feel like they don't have control over their life, so they have reactance, which means immediately they're going to push back. A really good example is COVID. People losing their minds, when they were forced to wear masks. And a big reason, it wasn't really the mask, it was that they felt that they had no autonomy. You're telling me what I have to do, and I feel like I have no control. So in law enforcement, you're typically dealing with this often, where you can't offer people a choice typically. It's, I need you to do this. So when you have people really escalating and getting in your face, and in many situations, wanting an altercation, they want to put on YouTube, they want to put it on social media, you have to manage yourself. Also, in my mind, I'm like, you're not going to get that from me. So you do have a higher threshold to tolerate a lot more nonsense.
So if I was someone who was really disrespecting you when you were doing your job, and I was shouting in your face, you told me to get across the street, and I started cussing you out and being very personal and trying to sort of exacerbate the situation, what would be going through your head at that exact moment? I'm now screaming in your face, I've got my phone out, I'm telling you, you're live on Instagram. What is actually going through your head versus what you're displaying externally?
What I would say is, ma'am or sir,
I'm alright,
whoever it
how are
was,
you?
was like, I appreciate you're frustrated. However, I'm not able to have you stand here. Could you please go across the street?
And what's going on up here?
How many times I'm going to say this before I force this person across the street before I put handcuffs on them? That's what's happening in my head. So in my head, I'm doing mathematical equation. How many chances do I give this person before I throw on handcuffs?
Have you ever had someone insult you
Yeah.
in a really vicious, this like horrible way?
Ditz, dummy, Barbie, you know.
And does it offend inside even if you don't show it?
I don't want to say you get used to it, but you don't take it personally because they don't know me.
Always.
Also,
Well,
when you're
I've
in law
never
enforcement,
seen you,
you're
so I don't know what
you're
is same
seeing
as
people at their
always.
worst. You are seeing the worst of
I can
humanity.
only
That is
see
one of
the
the toughest
text
jobs.
on this
Even
app.
and even with military, they go to war. That's atrocious. But you go, you do your tour, and you're out. And then maybe you go back, but you get reprieve. Law enforcement, you're doing this for your entire career.
Diary of
Every single
CEO
day, you are seeing the
episode.
worst in humanity. People are lying to you. They're committing crimes. Like you really could lose a lot of faith. You really could become really cynical. It's actually a common trait in law enforcement. So you have to be really careful to not become overly cynical because you're seeing the worst of people, and they're also bringing out their worst behavior. For whatever reason, people are not the best version of themselves. And again, you're also typically not dealing with the good citizen. You're dealing with people who are consistently committing crimes. If you look at crime in general, the vast majority of crime, it's committed by the same group of people. And the majority of arrests, if you look at the arrests, they're misdemeanors, meaning driving while intoxicated. They're smaller things. Felonies, really serious crimes. These are people who typically violate the law consistently. So when this is happening, we would memorize what the U.S. Secret Service did is they taught us to fight with facts. I fight with facts. So we actually memorized the title codes, like Title 18 USC, was it 3056? That gave me the right to do what I needed to do to secure and protect the President of the United States. And if you were interfering with that, then the law gave me the right to arrest you if I needed to. I didn't want to arrest anybody. I didn't care. But the law gave me that right because now you're impeding in my ability to do my job. So one of the things I would do is I would say, ma'am, you are right now impeding with Title 18, 3056. And I would say the title of what it was, which says that I have to do X, Y, and Z. So here's the thing. I don't want to arrest you, but you do need to move across the street. You can move across the street and I can get somebody to come talk to you, or, it's going to escalate. It's up to you. Most people, Stephen, listen, but a lot of people like theatrics.
You said it's up to you. That's giving them an element of control, which is good.
It's up to me. Look, at the end, they have to do it because I have to do my job, right? But the majority of time,
But you've given them the choice because you said you can either go
This.
for script or this.
yes, but sometimes you have to repeat it like 15 times to people before you actually do it. Look, here's the thing. Once you put hands on people, the last thing you want to do is put hands on people. The minute you put hands on people, everything breaks back. They're going to freak out. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's not a good thing. The majority of people I would arrest, after I would arrest them, I would have to take them to the hospital. Not because I did anything to hurt them, but my heart hurts. I'm stressed. I don't know what's happening. I have a headache. I don't want them to die on me. And the majority of the time, I would take them to the hospital. Or they were faking it. I've had people fake heart attacks because they thought I'd feel bad and take the cuffs off. And I'm like, okay, are you having a heart attack? Let me put the cuffs on. We're going straight to the hospital. And I would take them to the hospital. So there's a lot of tactics people would use to also get you to stop. Manipulators, which people can do the average person. Not in this way, but ways people can manipulate you to stop whatever it is you're doing. Let's say you're trying to find out the truth of something, or you're trying to get to, you're asking questions and the person doesn't like it. They may start crying. People would cry when I would arrest them as a way for me to feel sorry to stop. So often people will use things to get you to feel bad to leave them alone. Let's say you're going to fire somebody for something they did and you're asking them questions and they start crying in the office instead of asking the questions, right? That's a way to deflect, to get you to feel bad, to stop your line of fire of questions, to get you to stop. Very common crying. It's a manipulation tactic. And there's other things people can do. So people will use certain things to get you to stop what you're doing. And sometimes people fall for it. Or they'll say things to you. You're only doing this to me because I'm a woman or because I'm this. And those sometimes, not that they're not true, but a lot of times it can be used as manipulators to get you to back off.
In that scenario, you're being met with emotion. It appears that you're returning logic because you're talking
Yes.
about the title code. And you could, I guess, return emotion, but
No. You own your emotion. Nobody should provoke you. Nobody. You're Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. Nobody provokes you. You own your response. You can go in that back room and motherfuck somebody to, do it in the mirror. But nobody owns that. Nobody should take that from you. Who are they to take that from you, and who are you to surrender it? And that's the way I look at it. You're going to be dealing with people. People are a revolving door of all their stuff. And I do think we see a really heightened emotional state with people. Like, people can't not post stuff on social media. Like, everybody has to give their opinion on something. And sometimes I'm like, stop. Like, everybody doesn't need to know what you're thinking. Like, stop posting. We put so much noise out there because we think people care. They don't. It's like, even though when you speak, I look at social media the same way. What are you contributing to the world? Are you? Post it. If you're not, don't post it. Don't put more noise. Your contribution points even in your posts and the things you share with the world. But I look at it this way. You're at a point, I understand when you're young. Up until you're 25 years old, I give you a free pass because that frontal cortex of yours is not developed. You're not emotionally regulated. But then there comes a point where you have to own your emotions. I had to because I would lose my job.
how do I become unprovocable? Is there a way? Or is it just by repetitions?
It's repetition. If enough people get in your face, over time, you learn to manage your emotions. But if you spent the whole time avoiding people getting in your face, I'm not telling you to go look for problems, but you shouldn't go out of your way to avoid conflict to such a degree where you're willing to do anything and whatever because you don't want conflict. I don't want conflict. I don't like it. But if it shows up in my face, I'm going to be there. You can also handle people non-emotionally with facts. Okay, earlier on you said X, Y, and Z. Could you explain that to me? Even sometimes when some people tell me, you know, I feel like I'm not valued at work, or I think my boss doesn't care about me, or I believe this, and I want to go talk to my boss. And I'll tell them, I'm fine with you going to talk to your boss when they would ask me for advice, because I never give unsolicited advice. I'm fine with you going in there, but do not go in there and say, I think, I feel, I believe. Go in there and say, hey, I did this project, I spent X amount of hours on it, and I made X amount of money for this company. You know, I'd like to put in for a higher position, or I'd like to put in for this other project. Go in with the facts. Facts win, because it's harder for people to refute facts. I think I should get this. Well, I think you shouldn't. I believe, you know, you're treating me this way. Well, I believe I'm not. But if you say, we had this meeting, during this meeting you said this and this, could you explain that to me? Because it seemed as though you didn't trust me in that meeting, or it seemed as though you were upset with me in that meeting. But I'm telling you specifically what I did. So I'm bringing it back to that specific fact and moment, versus now, I feel that you treat me this way. It's so vague and ambiguous. When you go in with very specific things, that's harder to argue. You want to, not that I want you to win an argument, but you really want to make your point and get results. Be very clear and specific. And you know what, if you're nervous, write it down. I always tell people, write your stuff down. Walk into a meeting, if you're having it with your supervisor, sir, boss, I don't know if people say sir anymore, I guess I have to say sir. Sir, I took some notes down, so I hope you don't mind. I'm just gonna look to it just to make sure I speak clearly and I don't make any mistakes. And then go through the points.
I actually asked a colleague of mine who was in a similar situation, who wanted to have a conversation with me, and they're a slightly younger colleague of mine, in their early 20s. They said they wanted to speak to me about something, and my advice to them was actually to write it down in a memo, as if you were writing a story, because I love narrative memos. And I did that because I wanted them to properly think about what they wanted to say, because I knew what would happen is they'd come in, they'd start sort of like falling over their words a little bit. They might not fully give me all the context. And I often do that now, which is in all my meetings that we do. We kind of stole this from Jeff Bezos at Amazon, is I'll have someone write it into, even if it's a 2-page memo, which says like, this is the situation. This is why I'm bringing you this thing in this meeting. This is my proposed solution. This is the decision I need. You know, super, super clear. Because in business, you often find you have two kind of sides of things. Either someone walks in and freestyles with their voice and they stumble in the moment, they don't get things out properly, or someone comes in with like a 100-page PowerPoint presentation, which is like vague pictures of things and bullet points. And I hate a fucking bullet point, because a bullet point is open to interpretation, so is a picture. Whereas these narrative memos, which is what Amazon and Jeff Bezos figured out, they leave no room for ambiguity and all the context is there. And actually, sometimes it actually means that they can just send it in an email.
And then you don't have to talk
And
to
then I
them.
don't have to do the hour and a half.
Do you know what's funny you say that? When I did cases, I would always ask, and again, not because I knew to do this, I was trained to do this, but really good interviewers, get people to write not a memo, but a statement before you even interview them. You know, and if it was like the date of the crime, for example, tell me what you did from the time you woke up on this date to the time you went to sleep. And it would be a memo of what they did that day. Or tell me what you know about blah, 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 blah. And I would read those statements, and I would know often who was my suspect, who wasn't. I had one case where baby was a few months old, baby had a broken arm. And it was between the dad and the nanny that police were looking at. And police weren't sure which one it was. We think it's either the nanny or their dad. Now, in a criminal case, you always want to talk to the most likely suspect. You don't build your way up. I go to the person who I likely think did it. I'm going straight to the person, right? I don't want to go to the person I think maybe did it and then build my way there. I want the person that I truly believe is my suspect, my offender. So I get the statements and I read them both. I read dad's and I read nanny's. I read dad's and I'm like, it's not dad. I knew from the statement it wasn't dad. I read nanny's. And I knew right away after I read nanny's statement, she did it. Now you're gonna say, how did you know? The nanny opened up her statement by telling me about her morning, how frustrated it was, how she was running late. She had 2 little kids of her own. She was trying to get them out. She was a single mom. She was stressed out. Then she shows up to work to take care of this baby. The baby's fussing. The baby's crying. I did this. It didn't work. I did that. It didn't work. So as she's telling me the story, she's telling me how hard her day was. And then she turns into how frustrated she was with this baby. I did everything I could to get this baby to stop crying. I think the baby was either 3 or 6 months old. I can't remember. And the baby was this and the baby was that. And then she gets to a part where it says, then I gave the baby Tylenol and it went quiet. And I was like, there it is. That's when she broke the baby's arm. Who says I gave the baby Tylenol and it went quiet? In that moment, her language had changed so much. I was like, that's the moment she snapped that baby's arm and the baby passed out from the pain. And so when I get the statement, I call up the law enforcement entity, it was the state police, because they were the ones that asked me to come up. And I said, I want to talk to nanny, not to dad. And sure enough, nanny comes in. Hour and a half later, I had a confession. I didn't even have to give her a polygraph.
What was interesting is in her statement, it sounded like she was actually self-justifying her behavior.
She was. She absolutely was.
I was reading about this thing called cognitive dissonance that you just mentioned, and this idea that we don't like the gap between the way we're behaving and who we think we are or want to be. And when I think about myself and, you know, bad habits that I have or bad habits that my friends have, we all like justify. I'm too busy, so I couldn't go to the gym. Or there was nothing else that I could grab, so I ate the cookie in the minibar. Like, we have to find a way to justify it. And then some of us, I think, we like build our lives around kind of believing our own justifications.
Of course we do.
And then we're trapped. Because in the presence of these crazy justifications, what we're doing makes sense and it's okay.
I think sometimes I'm not telling people to feel permanently bad for what they do, because you don't want to, like we said, you don't want to live in the past and beat yourself up and, man, I messed up and I did this. You will. But I do think it's important to say, I did something and I shouldn't have done this. At least to yourself.
How do you stop believing your own bullshit?
Well,
Or do you?
I think, so I'm very lucky. I have a husband who makes sure that I don't. He is, but he's a very steady, good soundboard, but he's also a former special agent, both in U.S. Secret Service and Homeland Security, and he was SWAT. So this is a super steady person, lost his father when he was young. I'm only sharing this because you're asking. I guess what I'm saying is, so I have someone.
Crazy justifications. What we're doing makes sense and it's okay.
I think sometimes I'm not telling people to feel permanently bad for what they do, because you don't want to, like we said, you don't want to live in the past and beat yourself up and, man, I messed up and I did this. You will. But I do think it's important to say, I did something and I shouldn't have done this. At least to yourself.
How do you stop believing your own bullshit?
Well,
Or do you?
I think, so I'm very lucky. I have a husband who makes sure that I don't. He is, but he's a very steady, good soundboard, but he's also a former special agent, both in U.S. Secret Service and Homeland Security, and he was SWAT. So this is a super steady person, lost his father when he was young. I'm only sharing this because you're asking. I guess what I'm saying is, so I have someone in my very inner circle who will tell me, hey, chucklehead, you might want to think this through. He may not say it like that, but he will call me out on things. People that care about you will typically call things out on you. Now, there's ways to do it and ways not to do it, and there's maybe times where I'm not really keen on the way he does it. But because he has good contribution points, good credibility with me, I know if he's saying something, that there's validity to it. If he's going to pause and say, hey, I would like you to think about this, it's coming from somewhere. So he's built enough trust, I've built enough trust to know that he does that. Now, if you have someone who's always critiquing you, because that does exist, everything you do is wrong, then that person's not going to, they're not going to resonate. So I think having people that actually call you out on your stuff or help point it out, that can do it, and that you also have to be okay with listening it. So I'm mature enough, and I try to be humble enough to say, look, tell me the truth. Or there are times too where, as much as a strategic decision maker I like to be, there's times where, Stephen, I'm seeing red. Someone will do something and all I see is red. And I will go to someone that can either I trust or can help me make a decision with something. And I'll say, it could be my agent, it could be a work thing. I'm like, hey, this happened, I'm seeing red. How would you handle this scenario? Because I'm in an emotional state, I'm not gonna make a good decision. Can I have your guidance advice? And so I will go to people I trust who will guide me. So that's the biggest thing. I think call yourself out on your bullshit. The minute you start getting emotional, and I think there's a pattern. If everything offends you, if everything upsets you, if you're getting triggered all the time, if you're upset with people or angry with people, or you feel the need to let everybody know through social media or posts or texting, what's going on in your life, I want you to pause and say, why am I doing all of this? What is going on within me that I am feeling that I see the world this way? It always starts with us. It's always within. So I think that's the thing. It's like, what's going on within me? And if you have the ability and the maturity and you're in a space where you can do that and you want that, you can call yourself out on your own bullshit.
Do you have a lot of friends?
No. I did growing up. I was Miss Social Butterfly. No. And just so you know, the research shows, Stephen, that as we age, our inner circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I have a lot of acquaintances, and I'm friendly with a lot of people, and I network with a lot of people, and I like these people. But when I hear the word friends, I can count my friends on one hand. Do you have a lot of friends? You might, because you might still be at an age where you're kind of in the middle there.
For me, I've got like 5 best friends, but then I've got all these other people who I've become friends with, predominantly through work.
Okay, so I define friends as people you would give pretty much unconditional trust to. Unconditional. I trust you, I'll tell you whatever. More or less. How many would those be?
I reckon 10.
10. Unconditional trust. Okay.
Jack's one of them. Jack over there's one of them. Known him for 7 years now. There's nothing I wouldn't trust him with.
So that would be a legitimate, yes, that would be a friend, right? Consistency, length of time, trust, no betrayal. That would be a friend.
And is this a quality versus quantity game, do you think, the inner circle?
Yeah. Why do you need all those people? It's one thing to have connections and network and meet people and hang out, but who you bring into that inner circle, I think, and I would think even for you, you want to be selective and careful. Because you also want to make sure people, if Stephen wasn't Stephen, like, what quality friend would they still be? Because sometimes it's also what the package is and people are drawn to us. And that's okay. But I guess what I'm saying is, it's quality. Are they genuinely good friends? Like, if something bad happens and you're like, I need your help, and they're like, would they be like, let me go get my shovel. Where are we meeting? I think that would be the gauge of a friend. But I think sometimes people think a lot of friends are good and a lot of friends are noise. You can have acquaintances, but like your friend is really somebody who influences you.
I did something at 24 years old that has had a profound impact on my life. I set myself the challenge of posting every single day on my social media channels. And at the time, I was doing it to grow my following, but it had this profound impact on my life, and 2 remarkable things happened when I did that. I managed to learn faster because every single day, conversation is at what's stored.
But they're maybe in a victim mindset. They're always bringing problems. They're always bringing drama. Everything is wrong. Nothing is right. They're all low vibration.
Can you be low vibration because you're around low vibration?
It's just,
including my team, day free trial. You've used this term low vibration before.
yeah.
What does that mean to you to be low vibration?
You can think of it this way. Like, there's some people, look at low vibration as when you're around people and it's just, you don't want to be around them. They make you feel bad, not because they said something necessarily to you, but they're maybe in a victim mindset. They're always bringing problems. They're always bringing drama. Everything is wrong. Nothing is right. They're all low vibration.
Can you be low vibration because you're around low vibration people?
Yes, because you adopt their habits. You adopt and are influenced by people. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. If you surround yourself with low vibration people, eventually, slowly, it's going to bring down your vibration. It's easier if you're up here, let's say higher vibration. I'm doing really well. I'm excelling in the way I think, emotionally stable. You're kind of doing really well in life, and you're up here, and you're around people like down here, and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to help pull this person up, right? It is actually easier for them to pull you down than it is for you to pull people up. You know, I always say, be careful who you try to save. Some people will drown you. It's like when we would do rescue, search and rescue, they would tell you when you got out in the water, the most dangerous thing isn't the water, it's the person who's panicking in the water who could kill you. Because as you get closer to them to save them, what are they doing, Stephen? They're panicking, they're flailing. Then they see you, what do? They grab onto you so they can stay afloat. And you know what they do? They push you down. You're there to save them. But in their panic and in their loss and in their chaos, what do? They push you down. People are the same way, just in relationships. So all I'm saying is I'm not telling you not to be a person who's going out there to help others, but be selective in how you do it and who you help. Because then you fall into that space of I'm just trying to be a good person. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. No, you're exposing yourself to people and environments that are not good for you and that actually impact your life negatively. And so it's not on them. It's also we have a responsibility to ourselves, Stephen, to make good decisions on where we go, what relationships we enter, who we're dealing with, and what we're doing. We have a responsibility. So if somebody screws us over, I get it. Every once in a while, you come across an asshole and it happens. But if it's a consistent thing, it's also what did I do? What did I allow myself to do that exposed me to this volatility, that exposed me to this stuff? It's like crime. If I walk home every night in a sketchy area where the lights are dark and there's no lighting and I know there's high crime and it's an abandoned area, that choice I'm making to walk through that neighborhood versus taking a taxi, that will make me more likely to be what? A victim of crime. But if I take a taxi, I'm less likely to be a victim of crime. I avoid this bad neighborhood. I avoid this bad area. I guess what I'm saying is you also have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to navigate the environment we're in and how we engage with people. And it can't just be he or she screwed me over. It's like, what decision did you make? It's not blame, but what decision did you make that exposed you and made you more vulnerable to getting screwed over? Because typically, maybe not all, but the majority of times, there are signs that we choose to ignore. Or we think everybody's our friend and we give them unconditional trust, and then something happened and we think, why did that happen? Well, you gave unconditional trust like it was nothing. Your trust should, and that actually impact your life negatively. And so it's not on them. It's also we have a responsibility to ourselves, Stephen, to make good decisions on where we go, what relationships we enter, who we're dealing with, and what we're doing. We have a responsibility. So if somebody screws us over, I get it. Every once in a while, you come across an asshole and it happens. But if it's a consistent thing, it's also what did I do? What did I allow myself to do that exposed me to this volatility, that exposed me to this stuff? It's like crime. If I walk home every night in a sketchy area where the lights are dark and there's no lighting and I know there's high crime and it's an abandoned area, that choice I'm making to walk through that neighborhood versus taking a taxi, that will make me more likely to be what? A victim of crime. But if I take a taxi, I'm less likely to be a victim of crime. I avoid this bad neighborhood. I avoid this bad area. I guess what I'm saying is you also have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to navigate the environment we're in and how we engage with people. And it can't just be he or she screwed me over. It's like, what decision did you make? It's not blame, but what decision did you make that exposed you and made you more vulnerable to getting screwed over? Because typically, maybe not all, but the majority of times, there are signs that we choose to ignore. Or we think everybody's our friend and we give them unconditional trust, and then something happens and we think, why did that happen? Well, you gave unconditional trust like it was nothing. Your trust should be something people earn. You don't have to tell them you need to earn my trust. You don't have to say it, but internally, it's kind of like you need to earn this because it means something to give people trust. You shouldn't just automatically surrender it, do you? So Jack, what's up, Jack? Jack, over 7 years, earns trust consistently and over time, and that's why that relationship's the same way. But you are responsible. We are each responsible for ourselves. So if you keep exposing yourself to low vibration, to chaotic areas, chaotic people, then you are playing a role in the problems that you have.
We live in a culture, though, where people do complain a lot. They complain that things aren't fair, that they're not equal, that they're not, not being treated like they should be treated, etc., etc. And there's a lot of that in the corporate world.
Because it's allowed. I think it's okay to meet people where they are sometimes and listen to them. I think it's valid. But it's also when you bend so much, you're also doing a disservice to them because you're helping make excuses for them. They're not delivering, and it hurts the work culture. And I think you really have to be careful because a person who comes in with poor performance can really impact the rest of the team. And I've had it. Like, I don't have as many employees as you have, but when I have people that work with me, I'm very aware of how their vibration comes in and impacts the other team. I want high performance, and if you're coming in with your low vibration and your problems and your dramas, it doesn't belong at work.
What is the defining sort of attitude trait of a low performer? Just if you just had to pick one, the first thing that comes to mind that pisses you off.
It doesn't piss me off, but when people start telling me about their personal affairs. And it's not that I'm an insensitive person. There's a time and place. So if you start telling me about how your weekend was with your grandmother or whoever, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's not that I'm insensitive, but we're at work. Like, I asked you about something specific and you're telling me about this whole story about, so you're making it about you. And I think that there's a little bit of like, did you not pause to think like, I'm talking to my supervisor or my boss. She's super busy. She's expecting something from me. Let me share it with her. When you do that to another person, you take from them all the time. How's that fair to them?
At the start of that, you said they would come and talk about themselves, etc. And it reminded me of something you were talking about in your TED Talk, where one of the key ideas is that you're not that special. What do you mean when you say you're not that special?
You're not that special is when we make ourselves so self-important, which in Western culture we have. It's very much about the person, the identity of the person. You can do anything. You can this. It's you. I think that's great. But what happens is when we get so focused on the singular person and we forget other people, is that we think that we are so special that it's just us and then the rest of the world revolves around us. We're the sun and then everybody else revolves around us. And when you think you're special, it's not that you become a narcissist or anything like that. That's not how I mean it. What I mean by that is, if I'm special, then what also that says is
No,
my
I'm
problems are
asking
special, my pain
ChatGPT.
is special, what I'm going through is special, and you meet those
So
people
she's
where
talking about low vibration people. I'm asking ChatGPT if there even is such a thing as a low vibration person. Because I've read this many years ago in spiritual kind of books. Low vibrations, like if they're depressed, like very angry, like all the bad moods would be classed as low vibration. But there's no such thing as a person who has low vibration. Like it's a metaphor. Yeah, it's just a metaphor for people that are, I guess, in all these negative traits. She's saying that if you hang out with low vibration people and if you're a happy person, it'll rub off on you. And I think she's right. But the term low vibration is not like they're vibrating, like it's just a metaphor. So she's right, because I think what humans are, like emotions are contagious and it'll rub off on you if they're really unhappy. Yeah, I think she's 100% correct. I mean, I don't really surround myself with very successful people, but I think it does matter.
where it's like, oh no, this is just happening to me, that mindset. And when you are there,
Yeah, I think it's herd mentality. I think when you see people around you doing a certain thing, I think it affects you, right? Like, I don't know if it also makes you want to do the same thing as them. I can't remember what I did though. I think I was on a train. I was on a line train. I saw everyone walking in a certain direction, and I thought, okay. And I thought there was another line, but I knew anyway. I ended up following the people going in the same direction. When you're around sad people, it will make, yeah, like I think she was basically saying, which I think she's correct. If you're like a happy person, like you're in a good mood and you're around, she's saying that if you're around people who are very negative, in very bad moods, they're gonna drag you down. And I think she's right. She's basically saying that you gotta be careful of who you surround yourself with. Because I think, what was it, like if you're empathetic, it'll be contagious. But I think, I don't know, right? This is a woman that worked in the American Secret Service before. I mean, I've already been, to be honest, I'm already aware of this.
you are alone and there's nothing that anybody can do
But
to help.
it doesn't mean that you shouldn't help someone, but you're also like, you're not like Mother Teresa, right? You're not sharing your time and energy with everyone. I think you can help someone in a bad place, but I think it's not your responsibility to get them out of their hole. But I also think it can all work the other way. If you're around confident people and maybe successful people and happy people, I think it rubs off on you too.
Even when they give you advice, because you are the exception to everything. When you have that mindset, at least when
So
I had
I think if you're around people who are very confident, I think that rubs off on you too. So it goes the other way too.
that mindset, all my problems faded away. As bad as they were, or whatever hardship I was going through, I'm like, I'm not that special.
Yeah,
There's a-
like I think you can help them, but you shouldn't like, it's not your responsibility to help. Yeah.
other people going through it far worse than I am. It doesn't minimize what I'm going through, but it reorients you.
You also talk about walking with conviction because predators can spot prey.
Yes.
Did you see that through your career that predators, narcissists would go for certain people?
Yes, but even in regular relationships,
It's almost like, you know, all the when you go out there and there's always like people begging for money, and that's actually kind of selfish, right? Like they're not giving you anything in exchange for the money. See, I always found that kind of like the natural response for a lot of people is like they don't want to give the money. Like occasionally someone helps out, but like yeah, like I guess it's sort of like that. I mean, some girls would give them money, but I think they're almost like asking for something with exchange of giving you nothing.
so why do some people end up with a bad partner all the time or an abusive partner all the time? Why?
Don't throw me under the bus, you said.
Yeah,
But why?
they're asking you for something with giving you nothing in return, and I think that's a bad deal.
Why? Because we tend to draw to us those folks because we look like
But
we're easier.
you
to
know, I sold like a Yu-Gi-Oh card, and like the guy who expected the card was expecting like a trash card because he bought something that, you know, looked kind of bent and it had a mark on the back of it, and I gave him a slightly better card because I couldn't find that card, and he gave me a review. He said the card ended up being better than expected, and he wrote he will be buying again. So I feel like I realized something because like that's there was a saying was like if you over deliver a customer, I think I don't know, like maybe they buy again. It's actually quite interesting because I don't think I've done that yet. But I think some companies like Amazon sometimes like they do a better service than I thought. And it's probably why people keep on buying from them. Yeah, so I think why am I getting to this? I think there's some people who give more than they take.
Targets. We look like they're people they can then mold or manipulate. And we trust too easily. I'm not telling you not to give trust, but there's certain traits that they look at. They're not going to go after an alpha type personality. You know,
it's called was it under promise over deliver. I don't know if that's like a general business principle, but I think it works well.
If you look like you're an easy target, if you look like you're easy to take down, if you look like you're easily going to be thrown off, people see that. They pay attention. But if they look like you're a competitor, if they look like you're a counter predator, and you don't even have to be that extreme, but if they look like, hey, this person's going to push back, I'm going to be careful. Even with some people you talk to, I bet employees, there's some employees that you're probably more comfortable telling something to because they're easier to tell it to. They're softer in tone. Maybe they're not going to push back. They're easier. And then there are other employees where you're like, I have to think about how I say this because this person's a strong alpha personality. And so I have to approach them a little bit differently. Now, people are the same way. We give off cues. We give off vibes. And to some people, we can look like easier targets. Even crime, they pick their targets. They don't want fair fights. I want someone who's going to go down easy. Kids are the most overly abused population. Why? Because they're kids. They're the easiest to target. They're the most vulnerable. Why? So if I'm such a strong predator, why am I going for kids? Or next, elderly. Why am I going for elderly? Because they're easy for me to conquer. They're easy for me to take down. Predators are not what you think they are. Even if you look at recent events, if you look at recent shootings we've had, when you look at the people that have carried out some of these shootings, there was one recently this week with Charlie Kirk. Look at that shooter. Does he look like a predator to you? I don't mean it in a...
I asked ChatGPT. It says under-promising. You don't have to under-promise all the time. So don't under-promise all the time. You don't want to under-promise all the time because it makes you look cheap or unambitious. Promise what you like. Going above expectations creates a real impact. Blah 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 blah. Interesting.
a cold way, just as you look at. There was one before that here in the United States. It was the Minneapolis school shooting.
Yeah,
Did
but
you see?
over-promising is definitely a problem. I think it can cause problems. So you don't want to, like a guy friend I used to, I'm no longer friends with this guy. Like if you over-promise on a result and you don't deliver, I think it can create resentment. So I think over-promising is also a problem. Yeah.
See that shooter? Does that look like a predator to you? These predators that we envision in our head that we think are these ruthless, scary-looking people, they tend to not be that. They themselves are not strong. They look for weaker targets because it's easier to take out and manipulate. Predators are not these. It's not like what you see in the movies. Like you think you're going to see the scary-looking dude, and I'm not saying you're not going to see that from time to time. But these people who do certain things, who take advantage, they don't look like predators. And you have to be careful because you inadvertently attract people who look at you and think, I can manage her. I can do that. I can mold that. I can shape that.
And in the context of work or relationships, if there's my boss is shouting at me and constantly berating me, or my partner is shouting at me and berating me, and I just feel small. I
think there's definitely people who don't keep their promises because people don't keep their words. They say whatever's convenient in the moment. I mean, I was, well, I'm no longer friends with the guy, but there was a guy who gave me advice, and he's not over. Yeah, he kind of was over promising, but he wasn't promising. But it's like, oh, if you do this, this will happen. You know, it'll be really good for you. And I ended up doing it, and nothing good happened out of it. So I think I ended up probably resenting the advice he gave, because I'm like, I shouldn't listen to this guy. He was so wrong. Yeah.
I can't necessarily call for backup. So is it as simple as saying I should just leave? Or is there, what if it's a situation where I can't leave? Like it's like family, or sometimes in work, you have to stay because you need to pay bills, or there's kids involved and I'm married to this person.
So you're saying you cannot leave?
Yeah, if I couldn't leave.
I always feel like there's a choice. It may not.
I should not listen to. Not if I reflect, I'm like, I shouldn't listen to this guy. It was so wrong.
Choice you want to make, but you always have a choice. Because in those scenarios, if you've got, let's say, and I've had a lot of people come to me, they're truly.
It's counseling. I'm trying. I don't know how effective counseling fucking is, man. I've tried it for 2 times, so far the last time it was kind of exhausting.
Abusive relationships.
No, I think it's mostly for the ego. So I was 20 and they were 21 at the time. I'm much older now, so reflecting, it's quite obvious to me that I shouldn't have listened to him at all. But at the time I didn't know. I was seeking advice, and that was not the right advice he gave me. Yeah, I think it's ego. Like, I think if they're trying to mentor you, it depends. It depends on the person, right? I think sometimes it can be ego. Yeah, I think it's emotionally draining. I've never tried counseling before. It's draining because I don't know if I think I asked ChatGPT. It says it's because they're trained to like get the emotions out of you or whatever from the past, and I don't really want to experience the emotions of whatever trauma, right? Like, and it's like draining because I don't know how effective it is. Like, what's the point of me experiencing this emotion? And apparently, it's like for me to process it. Age never matters; it's how wise you are. Yeah, I think it depends. I don't know. Like, some people are more mature than others.
There's no advice I can give you to fix that. That person is just going to abuse you, let alone from you assaulting
The thing is, after the counseling session, it's kind of like getting punched in the face, but like not actually getting punched in the face. It's almost like I got the same feelings I got from many years ago, but it didn't just happen. It's almost like you reawaken the same feelings and thoughts that I had back then. So I don't know how useful it is. So I don't know. I'll probably go on. I don't know if I'll go a third time, but so far I've not really found it to be that useful. I asked ChatGPT. It says you don't have to go again. But then on other days it's like, oh, you should probably go. Yeah, I don't know how effective. Maybe I should ask them if I should go to therapy. Apparently CBT is better. Yeah. Counseling. What's the difference with counseling and therapy is different, right? I think I need to see a therapist.
them back, and then now you're having like, God forbid, like somebody's dead, which does happen. I can't fix that. What I can do is for a person like that, and most people don't leave abusive relationships. The research, I've talked to a lot of people.
ChatGPT, it says CBT would be better for me. It just wasn't useful because she's constantly I was talking to her about the problem, but I was not feeling better. She's like digging into it. I don't know if it's called emotional excavation or whatever. She's trying to get the emotion out or whatever. I've never tried therapy either. I've never tried counseling. It was the first time I tried it. So far, I've not really found it to be very useful. Emotional excavation.
What actually turned out is we got there maybe
It doesn't go far.
Work with abuse victims, they find that even when they do leave,
Maybe I should
the vast
start
majority
going,
go
'cause
back.
so far it's not really
So
helpful.
I think
like
that's
I went on Tuesday, and afterwards it's felt. I think beforehand I felt fine, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I was happy to talk to strangers. After it, I just felt kind of drained, like drained for hours. Like and I didn't really. I felt more withdrawn, and I had the same thoughts I had when I had the problem, the trauma, whatever. And some of the same feelings. So it's not. I don't know how useful it actually is. But it's only it was like a free counseling by the university. So I don't know how useful it actually is.
This scenario, if you have someone like that in your life, the best thing you can do for them is listen and just try to keep them as safe as you can. I don't think there is nothing I can do. What are you gonna do? Get a gun, and then what? You're gonna use it?
People, I think they almost want you to help them stay in that situation, but change the situation.
No, change the person. It's the iceberg we talked about. They're not accepting the truth of who they have in front of them. We don't accept the truth. I have this person, and this person is horrible to me. They're abusive to me. They're vile to me. And I think if I could just get them to not be like that, everything would be okay. Okay, of course it would. But that's not the truth. You're not living in truth. You have somebody who's horrible to you. Now, if it's an intimate personal relationship like a companion, that's a big thing because you live with that person. There's no getting away from them. They're typically, like if you have a companion or you get married, like you're what? Typically, unless you divorce, you're tied to that person. That's really rough. Now, let's say it's a parent. Or a kid, because kids can be just as abusive to parents. Actually, the research shows, at least here in the United States, I can't remember the most recent year I looked at, it was the Uniform Crime Report, I believe, it showed there was more abuse from child to parent than parent to child. relationship wise. I don't mean a 5-year-old hitting their parent. I mean, it can be an adult child being abusive to a parent. But let's say you have a scenario like that. Now, there's a point at some degree where you can remove yourself either from the parents' house. Let's say you live with your parents. I get this sometimes a lot. My parents are like this or they're like that to me. And I'm like, how old are you? If you're over the age of 18 and you can work, you have the ability to find ways to remove yourself. You don't have to cut them out of your life because sometimes for people it's really, really hard. They love their family. As messed up as they are, you can love your family, but you don't have to like them. Those are two different things.
I had a scenario like that where there was a certain member of my extended family who was being inappropriate. And I was the first, this was when I was younger, I was like 18. I said to my siblings, I said, I know you guys are going to stay and tolerate it and you're going to justify it in your own way. That's not the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to cut them off. And funnily enough, this person treats me the best. They treat me the best. And I think it's because they realize that my tolerance is so low and I'm willing to walk away, and that I don't think family means that you are bound to this person for life. I do think you still get to choose. I think like all relationships in your life, there should be a certain standard that they have to meet, whether they're family, friends, a stranger, or a team of whoever it is, that they have to meet like a minimum standard. And family for me, just don't get a pass on that. And funnily, it meant that my relationship, I've never fallen out with this person. The only reason I said that was because I see them falling out with everybody else. But, and this was again before the podcast and whatever else, like before my businesses, I was a broke student. But I, for whatever reason, probably some trauma-related reason, felt no obligation to keep you in my life just because we have the same genes. For me, that's like not a high enough bar. And they treat me so well.
That's so interesting because you stood your ground.
Yeah.
And this is where sometimes we talk about how we're talking about the bad things that happen to us and we carry them through. It's one thing to go through something bad and then you move through it, right? You moved on. But when you stay in something bad, so like if you're in a relationship and there's continual trauma, you can't move through that because you're staying there. It's not it happened to you and you're staying in this victim mindset. It's like you're still in it. Chronic abuse, chronic trauma, however you want to define it, and abuse can look differently, or chronically having somebody bully you, that's really bad. That's really bad. There's no strategies, there's no skills. And I would get those folks and they're like, can you help me be more confident, be more this? And it would come out in the discussions I would have that they had somebody that was in their life that was bully or abusive. And I would tell them there are no skills I can give you that can help you be more confident because I can't counter that. You have someone who is consistently demolishing you. And so you think what? I'm going to tell you to what? Do a power pose? And that's going to fix it? Do you feel like you have, and I don't know, I'm asking out of humbleness, I don't know, do you feel that growing up you had a lot of people that around you that were either, had a lot of issues or struggles and like that it was something that you had to push through or climb out to get to where you are?
Yeah, I think it really only takes like one person. That's close enough, especially if they're above you, to basically, in my case, to make my tolerance level extremely low. I think people can relate to that because I hear people say this all the time. Like, it only takes one parent that did X or one parent that did this, or an uncle or an auntie or whatever, that you go, I'm going to tolerate 0 of that. So another thing in my relationship with my partner is neither of us shout. And I grew up in a house where shouting was the background noise of every day, like from morning till night. And so with me and my partner, been together for 7 years, we talk like this. It's not to say we don't argue or we don't have disagreements, we don't get upset, whatever, but there's never shouting because I just have 0 tolerance for that. I would just, frankly, in my previous relationship, when the shouting began, I would literally just disappear from the space and I'd be in my car driving on the motorway. That was my response because I grew up in a house where that was, and my siblings are all the same. None of them shout, all very, very calm, all very softly spoken because we grew up in an environment which was the opposite. Funny,
that's interesting too because it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, and it sometimes does for people.
It does.
You talked about the abuse. Violence often comes from violence, but sometimes like peace comes from violence.
That's true.
And this is also why when you said earlier that looking back at your past and trying to figure out what happened is not necessarily useful because 2 kids in the same environment can turn out entirely different, and you see that across siblings. There's something interesting you were saying a second ago about. We were talking about like gradual small exposure therapy to change your life for the better, moving the shoes closer to bed. But then you also just talked about the gradual exposure therapy of someone breaching your boundaries and becoming an abuser, and how it's like they just every day just move the shoes a little bit closer to the bed.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It goes both ways in that regard.
When I, with my inner circle, like even with people I work with, if I really pay attention to behavior, or if like, this is something small and I don't know if you're the same way, but like if you work with me you work for me and I send you an email and you don't respond till 4 days later, massive red flag for me. And I won't say anything to you. I'll wait. And then I'll test it out again with something else and again. And as soon as I see that in my head, I'm like, we're done. I may not tell you anything, but I'll find a way to let you go. So there's a certain things and that's a little bit like the moving the shoes closer. With my inner circle, like even with people I work with, if I really pay attention to behavior, or if like, this is something small and I don't know if you're the same way, but like if you work with me you work for me and I send you an email and you don't respond till 4 days later, massive red flag for me. And I won't say anything to you. I'll wait. And then I'll test it out again
4 days?
with something else and again. And as soon as I see that in my head, I'm like, we're done. I may not tell you anything, but I'll find a way to let you go. So there's a certain things and that's a little bit like the moving the shoes closer away from the bed, where I'll see somebody do something and I'm like, is it a fluke? Mm-hmm. Did they truly miss it? Or is this kind of this relaxed attitude? Oh, it's Evie. She's so, I don't know if they think I'm nice, but after I do these podcasts, I'm like, oh, she's so scary. But sometimes people will get too relaxed and comfortable. And so it's in a different way. And so I'll test it out. And when I see that, I'm like, no, I'm not, if it's someone I really want to work with, I may address it. But sometimes I don't want to say I don't invest the time and energy and effort, but sometimes I know when to invest that time, energy, and effort and when to say no, and I pull out.
Earlier on, we talked about Charlie Kirk, this week. What week are we in? We're on Sunday. So yeah, this week he was assassinated while on a college campus as part of a tour that he was doing called Prove Me Wrong, where he went out onto college campuses and debated his ideas with the college campus students. And a shooter who has now been found and I believe is in prison currently awaiting
Jail,
yeah, their first appearance, I think, in court on Tuesday of this week, shot him in the neck from several hundred yards away. As a former Secret Service agent whose very job was to ensure that didn't happen to someone, to ensure that someone didn't assassinate them, harm them, keep them safe, etc., what did you think and feel when you heard the news?
So I have been covering the Charlie Kirk assassination from the news perspective. So you're asking me, like, what assessment can I give you as a former Secret Service? So I'll give you something. I'll share with you what I've been covering, and if you have a specific question, feel free to ask. So here's the thing. This is truly unique and exceptional, and this is why. People calling it a political assassination, right? It is and it isn't. Here's the difference. A president of the United States is a politician. It's understood that things like this will happen, right? And he has protection. A political appointee, like a member of Congress, correct? Because right now members of Congress in the United States, and I think in many parts of the world, are very afraid right now because their threats have also increased. So even here in the United States, they're looking to increase the budget on people of in Congress for safety and protection. It is to some degree understood that these things will happen over time to people who are political elected figures. Charlie is uniquely different. He talked about things, but he wasn't a political figure. Nobody voted for him. He was honestly, he had his own, didn't he have his own podcast? He had a podcast. He was out there, he spoke, he did talks, he shared his opinion. So he's no different in a sense than you and I, in a sense. And so what that assassination means is it is fair game now on anybody who has a platform. That's the difference here. So it's different. You're not dealing with presidents now, heads of states, or people in Congress. You're dealing now with people who, if they share an opinion that you don't like, and I perceive it as a threat, then now I have the ability to retaliate and take a shot. This is going to open up the door to copycats. Because to try to get certain people like a president of the United States or a member of Congress or a politician or certain people, those are hard targets. Those are hard to get. They're secure. But now this means anybody who's out there that I don't like and I don't agree with, I can take that target and cause harm to those people. We're moving into a space now where everybody is fair game. Where I have a voice. Even on social media, I would actually sit and go through X before I would go on air just to get the news updates, see what else was happening. And I would have to sit and filter through all the hateful comments people were writing, everybody to each other. And then every other 5 comments was, I'm getting death threats. People are threatening me. Because people were expressing their opinions online and other people were threatening them. This means that it means you can go after anybody. And what I'm not saying I would like this to happen, but to me, this is a massive red flag because it means now everybody is extremely vulnerable. And now we're looking to targeting people who have shows, who have platforms, who maybe do the news, who share opinions. That is why this is a bother. This is why people should be concerned.
You said copycats. Is that something that you actually saw when you're in the Secret Service, that if one incident happened, it would...
100%. All it takes is one person to do it, another person to be like, oh, he can do it? I can do it. He executed his mission. I'm not agreeing with the mission, but that shooter was able to do what he needed to do, and he was successful, sadly, right? So someone else is going to see it, and they're going to get that idea. I'm speaking at a university on Tuesday. So maybe somebody hears something I say on a podcast, they don't like it, they might get that idea.
But also there's a lot of people out there that are just not well. I mean...
No, they're not well. I'm going to be very transparent. People are not well. So in the U.S. Secret Service, we had a unit, it was called the Protective Intelligence Unit. In that unit is where we would track people who were presumed to be threats against people we protected. So how did they get on your radar? They would write letters, they would show up at multiple events, they would make phone calls, right? There was ways to do that. Then you have the introduction of social media. So now people they're able to now make threats and say things from the safety of their own home and not as afraid. It's a more detached way to attack somebody. And now you have to follow those leads. And now there's thousands of these things that come in. And even if they even hit your radar. And so everyone's inundated with tracking people. Now, at the time, initially, those who were looking to cause harm to our protectees typically had severe mental health issues. And from time to time, it wasn't often, the Secret Service would work with the courts to involuntarily commit somebody if they thought they were that much harm. With social media now, the playing field has changed. One, it allows people to say things that they would never say to your face. It allows people now, when you absorb the content online, the majority is very negative. Even though we're talking about this event, everything is typically very ugly online. And so people escalate. And we've also noticed that there's a lack of empathy. We are less empathetic the more we have exposure to online stuff. Because when people text hateful things, it doesn't become as a big of a deal anymore. Whereas if somebody said it to you, it's a bigger deal. So there is a severe mental issue with people. And there's also, when you look at behavior, typically the things that keep you in check seem to be a little bit more absent today, which also causes people to behave a little bit more inappropriately. So and this is again just for the research, not based on my personal opinion, family. When you have strong social bonds to certain structures, you're less likely to cause harm to others. So family is one social bond that keeps you kind of in place. I'm not going to do this because it would embarrass my family or hurt my family. Faith or religion, religious institutions, whatever that religion is, that typically keeps people kind of steady. Certain institutions, like having a strong bond to maybe a school or certain institutions, there are certain things that keep you less likely from behaving this way. And we do see a little bit of an erosion in those areas. And I think that leaks into people's mental cognitive issues.
One of the things that I don't think people realize as well when they're on the internet is that they are in an algorithm. And the algorithm isn't the real world, but it's actually just the things, the way that the algorithm works is it shows you more of the things that you've expressed interest in before. So my first sort of 10 years of my career was working in social media. So all of the major social platforms, we've got one of the most disruptive social media companies at the time. So I have a deep understanding of how the algorithm works. In fact, much of our job was to figure out how it works to help our big clients globally reach more people. And I think about like my grandfather. My grandfather will like look at his phone and he'll think what he's seeing is the world. But he doesn't know that dwell time is a huge factor in what he's going to be shown tomorrow. So if he dwells a little bit more on a particular post, the algorithm will go, ooh, Mr. Bartlett, Grandfather Bartlett is interested. So next time you log in, we're going to show more of that. And I learned this really starkly when one of my older relatives downloaded TikTok, and I got like an emergency call from their partner saying, we need your help. She's downloaded TikTok and it's like making her crazy. Like it's making her insane because she's seeing now all of this like vitriol and hate and racist stuff. And she thinks the world is like that. And she's like preparing to protest. So I had to, funny enough, get her password of her partner and hit this button in the back end of TikTok, which refreshes your algorithm. It just wipes out all of your history. And what I would do is I'd hit that button every single week. And eventually she stopped using TikTok. She found it boring because it was all now like X Factor, America's Got Talent videos, people singing, people dancing. And I'd go on her phone and I'd watch these like music videos and I'd like them and bookmark them and save them because I knew that that's what she'd see next time she logged in. I know this sounds crazy, but that's like, people don't realize that what they're seeing is they're pulling something towards them. And that's how the algorithms work. You pull towards you what you've been historically interested in. So if you're scared about brown people crossing the border in dinghies,
That's all it's going to
it's gonna
show
pull
you.
you more of that stuff. And you're going to start thinking that the world is X, Y, or Z. And yeah,
The other thing too, when it shows you that stuff, it's almost like being, how I said, when you're in law enforcement, you're exposed to the worst of people, and you have to be really careful not to become cynical.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you're also protected is because you're with other officers, so there's that team camaraderie, everybody helps each other. So now, this is the same way. I'm on my phone, and I'm exposed to the worst of the worst, and I'm consuming it. Here's the difference, I'm by myself.
yeah.
And there's nobody there to tether me to be like, hey, so I look at this stuff, and whatever it is I'm looking at, that I'm afraid. Because it depends who I am and what I resonate with. Is it, am I afraid of people crossing the border? Am I afraid of school shootings? Am I afraid of this other group? Right? It's just and everything is fear-based. They're tapping into your fear and they make you afraid this other thing is going to harm me. And there's no ability either, I've noticed through social media, there's no middle ground. It's either you're all the way over here and you're all the way over here. And they feed on people's fears, these algorithms.
So this is a graph I found which shows the rise in
And school shootings.
but it's rising. It's increasing.
One of the things to keep in mind with this, with the school shooting, and we don't know this based on this one, are these mass shootings or just shootings in general? So school shooting is, I show up to school, I don't like you, Steven, I pull out my gun, I shoot you. Technically, that's a school shooting. A mass shooting is like what we saw the week before, Minneapolis, and we had that person who showed up to school and he just started shooting randomly. So there's two. So when we look at shootings, let's look at mass. Let's look at mass, because if you look at school shootings one-on-one, those are a bit different and they have to do with the city. But if you look at mass shootings, what can we tell from mass shootings? So some of the data shows us, typically, that person tends to have some kind of association to the place they go to, the school they went to. Typically, there's some type of connection. Usually, at that point where they commit to shooting, something in their life happened, right? There's some type of
You can
moment. Maybe
find
they
it.
broke up
It's
with a
got
partner, they
diaries,
lost their
yeah.
job, something
It's
that
very
offset that
long.
moment. Now, over time, historically, they were building up to having all these issues.
It's
Those issues don't go
almost 3
away.
hours long.
But something
He's
typically
very
happens
good at getting my retention.
where they decide, I'm going to do this. The other thing is they're planned. So they sit down and decide to plan this out, and they communicate it to somebody in some way, or they do it through social media. Another thing that's really interesting, they happen typically in the mornings. They typically happen in the mornings. That person wakes up and says, okay, today's the day I'm going to do it. I've got my plan in place, and they execute it earlier on in the day. The other thing with mass shootings, not just regular school shootings, in almost all of them, if dare I say all of them, all those individuals had a history of mental health issues or mental illness. The other thing too that we see is they had access to weapons. So they were either able to go get a weapon, they knew somebody who had a weapon, and they were able to get that weapon.
One of the things you said a second ago about how this might become more frequent, sadly, had me thinking about why that would be and what's changed in the world. And one of the things that has changed in the world is that media is now increasingly people like us that have microphones in our kitchens. I mean, we're sat in what used to be my kitchen recording this conversation. And once upon a time, to reach this many people, you had to be CNN. CNN's a logo. It's hard to shoot out. But in a world where much of the media is like creator-led or host-led media, it's much easier to have a target. And it just made me think about it. I was like, oh yeah, of course, you know.
But sometimes too, the target, if you're looking at mass shootings, now if you're looking at a target like this Charlie Kirk thing we were talking about, right? Sometimes it's done because they want notoriety. It's a big thing. So with this specific shooting, Charlie Kirk, it's come out now that the individual was actually on Discord after he did the shot, talking about it with other members on Discord, according to what law enforcement said. Again, I'm just updating as I know it. It could change. But he was saying, he was basically talking with other people and basically saying like he did it and laughing about it.
He was admitting to doing it.
Yeah, they were like, we think you did this. He's like, oh, maybe I did it. Ha 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 ha.
I think he's just a very good interviewer. I think he just sounds like, well, he doesn't sound like every other British guy. I think he's just a very good interviewer. So when he's interviewing people, he doesn't talk over them. So the guy I listen to, Gary Vee, he always talks over people, but he's very good at interviewing people so far. But he also has a lot of practice in it.
So it's become,
he's
for whatever
also got a lot of
reason,
practice.
in that world, it's
I
seen
think,
as a...
I think he probably has, I don't know how many episodes, like 900? He's got a lot of reps in interviews. So the more practice you have, you're going to get better at it.
That is an acceptable thing to do.
A way to create significance in
Yes,
otherwise.
I want attention. I want to create significance.
Oh, 500,
And also,
yeah,
here's the other
500,
thing. What's happening is
525.
we are villainizing people very easily. We are calling people names. We are villainizing
He
them,
also
and
has
it goes
an entire team. So whilst I find
back
that
to social media.
like people with companies, like whilst you see Steve Jobs is not responsible, the person that's solely responsible for making Apple happen. Like people like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, you see their face, but they're not doing by themselves, right? They have an entire team behind them that isn't on camera.
Clips people are making, even things that are our words are our most powerful.
Yeah, I think my problem, I don't know if it's a problem. I don't know how useful my counselor was. Maybe I need the actual therapist instead of a counselor.
Weapon, and we don't realize that when you open your mouth and you say something, and it's what's happening is people aren't saying something because most people are cowards. They text it and they post it because they would never say it to your face, and they post it, and then what that does is all these negative things, these attacks we make towards people become commonplace. So if all I see is negative stuff, this guy's bad, this guy's this guy's that, I start to think it's true. And if you villainize somebody to such a degree, I think, well, I'm going to be a hero if I do something about this. Look at what a horrible person this is. I heard this quote once: the bigger the hero, the bigger the villain. I have to make you such a villain so I can feel like a hero. And this is what happens. When you villainize people to such a degree, you create a justification. I had to do this. Look at how horrible this human being was. Look at all the horrible things people are saying about them. I'm doing the right thing. You just justified it and sold it to yourself. It's the right thing to do. But today with social media, I can't solely blame them because social media posts and the things people are creating and putting out there is giving justification to other people to do this stuff.
Did you say that your husband was a sniper?
He was counter assault.
So you and him are both former Secret Service agents.
Correct.
So when you see something like the Charlie Kirk assassination happen, I'm so curious as to the conversations in your house about that, because you must be looking at this from so many different perspectives, from like how that person could have been more protected, I guess, or how that setup could have been to mitigate the chances of something like that happening.
So with Charlie Kirk, there's nothing they could have done, let alone put snipers on the rooftop to prevent that, or counter snipers rather.
Is that what they would have had to do?
That's what they would have had to do.
Okay.
There's no way anybody would have done it. That's what I said. Like, if you're a president or person of Congress or some VIP like that, you're going to get those assets. A person like Charlie Kirk, like you or me, we're not going to get those. Who's going to pay for that? So he had security, but he was on the ground with him. They're thinking, their type of security thinking, and this is private security, and again, it's not to knock them, because this is something new. This is new. They're thinking, I need to protect Charlie from the guy standing at the podium asking a question. All these people pushing up against the rope line who want to talk to Charlie. So they're looking at it from this physical sense. It's like, it sounds terrible, but it's almost like a meat shield. I'm the meat shield between you and them. They're not thinking high ground problems. Nobody thought, who would have thought, maybe a Secret Service agent would have, but who would have thought I need to have snipers on the rooftops or counter snipers on the rooftops to protect from a sniper shooting Charlie Kirk?
He was wearing a bulletproof vest, wasn't he? That's what I've been told.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's 100% true, so I don't want to say yes or no.
I say that because in several of the videos when he's on campus, you see that there's clearly, when he's wearing a t-shirt, you see vest marks here. I noticed this many weeks
It
ago.
might be true.
Yeah.
Just because it's never confirmed, I'm hesitant, so I don't know. It's very possible. And again, it's not a vest like that. It's gonna stop a round from a pistol typically, and maybe a shotgun round. Rifle rounds, usually like our counter assault teams in the Secret Service, they actually had an extra.
I'm interested in this conversation. I think it's really bad that Charlie dude died. It was all over the Twitter feed. It's actually kind of not annoying, but like it was like 20 posts, and every post was about the same thing.
Ceramic plate to help prevent those. So you really need like a different type of exposure to protect from a rifle round. Now in this scenario with him, the shot, you see it go straight to his neck. And that's the thing with vests. They protect you here, right? They protect your vital organs. And even when I would wear mine, you lived in the reality of, if I get one to the head, I'm done.
Is that your worst nightmare as a Secret Service agent, that something like that happens to the person you're protecting?
Correct. It is the worst because it means you failed. It's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, when you would do protection stuff and the person you're protecting, whoever it was, because you would protect, I've protected everybody from the President of the United States to former presidents to first ladies to their kids. I had Barbara Pierce Bush, which was President Bush's daughter. I had her for a while. To the Secretary of Treasury, to the Secretary of Homeland Security. These are all USS protectees and foreign heads of state. When the Prime Minister of the UK comes to the United States, he gets protection. We work with the team because you don't want anybody getting assassinated on US soil. So you protect Russia when he comes. Putin. You got to take a bullet for him too. So it's more the mission. So, but the thing is, it's your responsibility. And so,
Yeah, she has to take a bullet for Putin. That makes no fucking sense. If you're a U.S. Secret Service agent, why would you protect the Russian president? That makes no sense. Actually,
the whole time, I don't want to say you're on edge, but the whole time you're on. You're aware. Your mind's moving. Where's my threat? Where's my?
so she's saying as a U.S. Secret Service agent, U.S. Secret Service agent has to protect other country presidents. She's saying that she has to take a bullet for other countries' presidents when they are in the United States. That is stupid, man. Like, if it's not a U.S. president, oh my god.
My threat. Where's my threat? Where's my problem? And then we would have, sometimes we would have what they call like wheels up parties, which means your protectee is up, their wheels up in the plane. And that's when people are just like,
Well, I think that 'cause they're supposed to protect them on U.S. soil. And they use these U.S. Secret Service agents. She's saying that she would have had to take a bullet for him, which is insane because I don't think that she deserves that.
because the stress is so high, you're so on, you're always looking for the threat. There's no,
Hello.
we work in shifts, but there's days where I work 16, 17 hour days, 18 hour days, depending on what my assignment was. It's a lot.
What is the most important thing for the person who clicks on this podcast because they are looking for something
To be honest, sometimes when I see her talk, she looks like she's about to cry, but she didn't cry.
in their life? They want to be more effective in the pursuit of their goals, whatever their goals might be.
Tim Bartlett though doesn't look like he's gonna cry though. I think she probably had a really tough job, American Secret Service agent.
It could be professionally, personally, could be, maybe they want to be an entrepreneur or something.
I'm in the
What is the most
UK.
important thing that we should have talked about in that regard that we didn't talk about, Evie?
I don't know what to say to that. I guess what I would say to them is, I think the message is that
Looks like
they
you're
are
on the
extremely
hotline.
capable. And no matter what society is telling, no matter what's happened to them, no matter what excuses people make for them, or maybe they make for themselves, they are much more capable. And so that maybe when they see someone like you or myself and they think, oh, look, they've got it all figured out. It's like, we figured it out the same way everybody else figures it out. So I think, Stephen, the most important thing is like, we're not that special. And that means that they can do and achieve what they want. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you're absolutely capable. Even if you feel inadequate, even if you lack confidence, even if you've had horrible trauma in your life, whatever it is, despite all that, you are absolutely capable, and it is your choice.
Evie, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they're leaving it for. And the question left for you is, what brings you the most joy in life? And what are you the most scared of?
The most joy in life is my daughter. I think the biggest joy in my life is her, because I think that was something I always wanted to do, and to be a mom. And so that's the biggest joy. And at the same time, it's my biggest fear, because I want her to be well and healthy and okay. And I think
Yeah, pretty much.
a consequence of the
Rather
work
go
I
sleep
did,
soon.
and even still do because I'm in media and news and I cover crime, I've seen what humanity can do. I've seen the good in humanity, but I also have seen the bad.